Michael. How are you doing today?
I am awesome. How are you doing this morning, Martin?
Doing great as well. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be back.
It is a pleasure to be back. Let's say hello to everybody. Welcome back to AGTP Insights. We go live every Monday and Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time to discuss the most important tech stories in the United States of America. Today is Monday, Martin, the 27th of July, 2026. Look, let's get right to it. I want to talk about a couple of things. AI leaders in the United States are urging the U.S. as an entity to support open weight models. And this is kind of cool too. Nvidia is thinking about considering to provide $250 billion and maybe more to OpenAI for compute. Later in the show, we'll be joined by Ali Beikverdi, co-founder and CEO at HollaEx, to explore how accessible exchange infrastructure for Web3 will help businesses launch trusted digital asset services without building the underlying technology themselves. They're going to white label some stuff. And following that, we'll welcome Preetam, Sirur, PerfectSync Cyber, to discuss how AI-driven cybersecurity governments will help regulated businesses innovate without creating unacceptable operational risk. Let's talk about this, Martin. The AI leaders, there's like a consortium of people. We should talk about this, yeah?
Yes.
A broad coalition. Let me just get my notes up here. Of American technology companies that are almost pushing like open weight AI into the center of U.S. industrial policy. The thing that they want to do, right, is that like the argument here is that downloadable models will lower deployment costs, reduce dependence on a small number of model providers, and allow companies to run AI on infrastructure that they control. And the interesting thing, Martin, is that, and jump in whenever you want, is that this coalition includes leading model developers, right? So OpenAI is actually included in here. Google's included in here. Microsoft is included. GitHub, right? So that's part of the Microsoft stuff. Is also included here. Perplexity, right? OpenAI, like all these guys want to have, or at least they're saying they do, and they've signed this letter and wrote this letter, right? You can see it here. Open weights in American AI leadership. And it's really just like, you'd say like a baker's dozen, but it's kind of like everybody and anybody that's involved in this thing. And it's the chip makers, the cloud companies, and a whole bunch of startups as well. Now, there are a couple of names that are missing here, which I thought was interesting. Like there's no Anthropic on this list, which I find kind of interesting. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no Anthropic. I think this is, as you said, this is the one name, the one big name that's missing, especially as OpenAI is on this list.
Yeah. And we would say, like in the old days, we'd say, like, what am I, like the 12th man on the deal team? Do you know what I mean? Like, I just wasn't invited to this party. Like, is Dario Amodei just like sitting out in the cold waiting for someone to call him? Or did he just did not want to sign? Because Nvidia's there, Microsoft is there, Google's there, Meta's there, right? IBM, who care? Like AMD is there, Cisco, companies you've never heard of, like Dell, Cloudflare. When you've heard of Dell, but you know what I mean. No one talks about Dell in the context of artificial intelligence, do they? Not like, well, I spoke with Microsoft, Google, and Dell this week about artificial intelligence. That's not part of it, but they signed on. Now, Box, we know why, right? Aaron Levie is like very open-minded and very sort of open about his views on where artificial intelligence is going. But even companies like Palantir, ServiceNow, DoorDash, Palo Alto Networks, CrowdStrike, all these guys, you can see, like if you page up, Martin, it's hard to see, but at the end of this doc that you're showing there is a list, I think, of all the people that actually signed onto it. But it's small, like it's hard to see. But we should put this in the show notes if we can, so everybody can see this. But the idea is that, and even if you look at, so scale is there. I mean, that's part of the meta thing, right? Prime Intellect, Reflection is there, Edge Runner, like again, everybody and anybody that's kind of important, and even some of these investment firms, Martin. Sorry, like
SpaceX as well.
Yeah, but I mean, it makes sense, right? SpaceX is there because of Grok and stuff like that. But Andreessen Horowitz, Y Combinator, Emergence Capital, right? And then all, of course, the open source guys and all those guys like the Linux Foundation, Mozilla, all these guys, they are all going to be there for sure. But there's more than 70 companies have signed on to this. And it almost feels like the only two people that haven't are Anthropic and the U.S. government.
So they sent it to the U.S. government? Are they like the
This is
it's
an open letter to like the United States of America. But yeah, because they're worried. And look, just for people that don't know like what an open weight model is, essentially what it does, just for people that are just joining, right, and may not know, just really quickly, like, our audience for the most part knows. But like there are all these numerical parameters, right, that determine how a model behaves. And what day is today, Martin? Today's the 27th. I
Yeah.
believe that Kimi K3 actually exposed their
Yes.
weights today.
Today, yes. They
Right, because today
become
was the day they said they were gonna do what they put it on Hugging Face or something, yeah?
no. It's just like you can download the model.
Download it,
Oh,
yeah.
Is it going to be on Engine Fate? It's a good question.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I
but
saw
like,
something that said it was on
okay.
Hugging Face. But here's the other thing. So for these open weight models, because otherwise, like if your model is not open weight, first of all, you can't fine tune it because you don't know what those weights are. You can't change things on your own. You can't download it and you can't modify it and you can't deploy it on your own. This is a big deal. And it's different. And again, I think it was Jan who corrected us. Martin, by the way, do we have the date right today?
I don't think so. Wait.
We don't do it. Before somebody tells us.
23. Okay,
Before the
27.
peanut gallery tells us.
Okay, dude, we just read it right now.
Okay, I feel better now. Right. And again, this is different from open source. So thankfully someone has educated us on this and now we get this right. But the open weight models, they don't disclose like how they train the data. They don't disclose the development code and they don't disclose like the training process. All that stuff is undisclosed. But the weights that they're using, so you can then fine tune it like, I want this to be a little bit more weighted towards this thing or that thing. At the end of the day, can end up being kind of important, right? And access to the weights provides like a little bit of, what's the right way to say this, like operational freedom inside the model without necessarily understanding fully like how that model was created. Does that make sense, at least for people that may not understand what open weight means?
Yeah, but just if you have any question, like feel free to put them in the chat or in the comment if you look at this after we are live. But yeah, I mean, I think for me it's absolutely insane to see all of these names like all agree on one thing, right? Like they are all okay. It's actually crazy. Also, I would say like the most surprising to me is OpenAI because everybody else sell solution around AI. So I would say everybody else or almost everybody, like all the names that I can see, most of them they benefit from open weight AI, right? Like because
Right.
they can install them on their server, for example,
Yeah.
and then they can sell solution around this, right?
Right.
Like, so the
So
more
there's one other company that's missing. Do you
okay.
want to guess or no? You can say no, it's fine.
So Anthropic's not on the list. Well, let me think. Microsoft, I don't see them, but they are here as
No,
well.
Microsoft is there.
Meta, Google, AWS,
You see AWS.
Amazon.
Because initially AWS was not on the list.
Okay. Yes,
Are they
not
on
this
that letter? I
list.
can't see it, obviously. It's very small on your screen.
This one that I have, no, they are not AWS.
They're not. So I think AWS has not been included here.
Okay.
And there's some, not controversy, but there's some idea about why, because you're right. Like Microsoft, like Google, like Meta, like IBM, like AMD, like Cisco, like Dell, like Cloudflare, all these GitHub, SpaceX, all these companies actually benefit from open weight because they sell other services around it. AWS is the classic example of this through, what is it, Bedrock, yeah?
Yes, and that's the biggest one as well, AWS.
Yeah.
So that's why like everybody on this list sells something around AI. But it's at one that's OpenAI, right? Like OpenAI, they are the guys who will lose the most if it goes open weight, except if they go open weight as well, right? That's why I mentioned SpaceX. That's why you mentioned Meta as well. Like when I see these, it just give more possibility to the option that either one of them or all of them goes open weight really, really, really soon, right? Like, especially if the Chinese are banned, or even if the Chinese are not banned, to be honest. Like right now, the world is telling you go open weight, basically, right? Like this is like the market tells you we want open weight. Like at first I was seeing that more like from the angle of product distribution, right? Like I was like, okay, to company like Amazon or Google or Microsoft, they will want to make money selling their servers, so they need open weight model. So we are going to go open weight. So that was one angle that I was seeing. But now actually what we see since like a week or so that we discussed potentially banning the Chinese open weight model is that actually even the clients they want that. So
they
there's
do.
not only the hyperscalers and the service providers who want that to make more money. There's also the clients who want to use this. And I think once you pass the point where the clients want something, you can go back. I think it's too late. I think like once people want a smartphone, and they don't want a dumb phone, right? Then it's too late. You just can't go back, or it's gonna take so much time, or it's gonna be super hard to go against the tides, right? Is that the proper way to say that?
Yep.
Like
Go against the tide, yeah.
Perfect. I'm trying new
Close.
things and it works.
Close enough.
But so it's gonna be super hard, right, to go against this tide. Right? If everybody wants to go open weight, and I think this is the most surprising to me is how fast we got there. Like, really,
and here's the thing, right? Like the commercial case for customers that actually want to use this stuff is they want to be able to control their costs, but also control like what the models do for them, right? Because the thing that you want to do with the model may not necessarily be what I want to do with the model and stuff like that. And to be fair, maybe I want a smaller model to do some of the like routine stuff that I'm doing. It doesn't need like 3 trillion or 2.8 trillion parameters, which is what K3 has.
yes.
Or maybe maybe I'm in the medical field or like whatever it is, and I just want to customize that model around very proprietary knowledge. And why am I paying a frontier model for all of these like interactions if I don't have to, if they have all this data out there that it has to sift through, even in the case of an MOE, right? A mixture of experts model. I just want something smaller, targeted, that just has the proprietary knowledge that I want. And again, this extent to me, like this moves further away than just like the model developers, right? Because as you were saying, if you're providing other services around these models, as you move away, or if you have, what's the right word, like model portability, if I can take the model and do what I want with it, and if I can take it from one service provider to another service provider, well, then they can compete on their cloud infrastructure or the applications that sit around it, all the other stuff. And from a customer perspective, it's just a better situation of being wed to one particular model that I have to pay egregious fees for, right? And I think people are starting to think about that too. It's like, why is this stuff so expensive now, right?
Yeah.
And I was reading an article today, Martin, that said like people have moved from token maxing to just like cost control, and that's important too, right? Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, it was obvious, right? Like we've been talking about that for weeks
months
now, right? And even for months.
Yeah.
But yes, cost matters, right? Like the CFO was on holiday for 1 week and then he came back, and don't forget that he came back and now he's back in the company. So yeah, no, I think this is once again, I'm gonna say the same thing I said last week, but it's so surprising to me how quick we got there. I would say there were some hints, right? Like, and let's give credit to all of our guests, I would say, especially on the Asian side. We had a lot of people talking about open weight model and fine tuning, like very early on. I would say
even some of the model developers. I mean, Agnes was one of the guys who was like, look, we're just going to open weight all this stuff. Yeah.
And we talked to Agnes maybe back in March, right? Like, so I would say we had some hints, right?
Yep.
Since maybe the end of last year, early this year for sure, but maybe the end of last year as well, that people preferred this type of solution. But now it's clear right now, like you don't have all of these companies to agree on something if it's not the right thing to do, right? I mean, to me, it's like looks so obvious, right? To me, it looks like we were going to the restaurant, Michael, and we were standing because that was the only thing that we knew, right? And all of a sudden, someone bring a chair, and then if we feel that more comfortable, and now all the clients say we always want
to
chair
sit down
in every restaurant. So it's not just like in this restaurant I want chair. No, it's like more like the behavior, the way I want to buy now has changed, right? And so that's why it's very, very different from how it was 6 months ago. And I'm really surprised by the pace of change, because now we are in a situation where using AI, buying AI is nothing like it was six months ago. It's completely different.
What's the implication on security, right? Because if I can change the way, if I can download all this stuff, right? Let's just think about this. Then I can do some independent testing, and do you know what I mean? Like the defensive capabilities that sit inside these models actually become more available, but it also allows me, if I'm a black hat hacker, to then go, wait a second, I can remove all the guardrails from this model potentially, if everything is open weighted, right? Not just the ones that are open weighted right now. Do you know what I mean? Like, so how much additional risk is there involved in this stuff if you open weight everything?
So I think the way I think about it, and that's why there is Cloudflare, that's why there is CrowdStrike, that's why there is like so many cybersecurity company in this list, like Palo Alto and all of these guys. I think it's because at least if the defendant has
Mm.
access to the same tools, they can prepare better and they can defend themselves better.
Right.
I
So
don't, yeah,
if I know what it is, and if I know what you
exactly,
have, and I know what you're using, and then I can sort of
yeah,
surmise like what you're going to focus on from a weighting perspective, even if I don't get it perfectly
exactly,
right, then I
yeah,
can at least I know what tools you have, right? I know what kind of
exactly.
guns you have, so I know what kind of defense I need to protect against those guns. Yeah.
Exactly, because the alternative, for example, with Mythos, is that we bet on the fact that these billion-dollar criminal companies are not going to get access to Mythos at all. That's the bet, right? And that
Right.
Anthropic giving us to 20 companies only, it's going to stay there, and no one will leak it to anyone outside these 20 companies. That's the alternative. So which bet do you want to make? Do you want to do you want to make the bet where we just give the same tool, the same guns to everyone, and then at least the information is
Mm.
published? Or do you want to bet on the fact that the best thing is not going to go to fall in the end of the bad guys, right? I think all the guests that we had on the show, they all said it's better that everybody has the same has access to the same information. And I think I agree with that. I think I really agree with that, and I think that's a better situation when we know what's going on.
um, how important do we think these geopolitical part of this argument or this question is, right? In the sense that the two biggest countries in the world, the two superpowers in the world, are the ones that also have the most power when it comes to the frontier labs and the artificial intelligence. And one side seems to say, we're going to open weight everything, at least for the most part. And the other side is going like, don't look inside my box. Do you know what I mean?
Which side do you mean?
So,
You saying
China's pretty comfortable open weighting their models.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, since day
And
one,
most
yeah,
of the companies inside of China are pretty happy to do it. So
yeah.
far, only Thinking Machine Labs has said that I believe, you know what, we'll release our we'll release our weights when the time has come. Kimi K3, we already did this again, another Chinese model. So that's pretty straightforward. I do believe we will get to a point where some of the US models do this without, I wouldn't say the permission, but without the urging from the US government. I think they may just do it for business reasons. And again, to put
Mhm.
pressure on some of their competition in the United States. But there is like, whether we like it or not, there is sort of a China versus the US stance here as well, right? And it goes back and forth between like, we won't even give you, like, you won't open weight your models, but guess what? We'll open weight ours, but we won't even give you access to them,
Yeah,
right?
so I think like this entire this discussion started when the US government hinted that they could actually ban the Chinese model, right? Like,
Right.
and then that's when all of these things happened, right? Like when everybody said, but actually we want open weight model and all of these things, right? So this is when people started to gather together. So I think there is definitely some sort of that. But I think it's bigger than that. I don't think they say per se we want the Chinese model or we want the other models. I just think they say we want open weights, and as of now, the best are Chinese. So two things. First of all, don't ban them, otherwise we are in trouble. And second of all, let's build champions inside the US. So let's push Nvidia to do it. Let's push Google to do that. Let's push thinking machine labs to keep building these things. And maybe let's go open weight for Grok, for Meta, for OpenAI as
Mm.
well. And so now at least we are talking, I mean, we are at the next phase of AI, what we believe is the next phase of AI, and from there we can keep building, right? Like
Mm.
that's how I see things.
But look, one of the things we've hinted at and that we've spoken about before is if it's open weight, then the models get closer and closer to being commodified, right?
Yes,
At
yes,
some level, right? And then
yes,
you
yes,
can make more specific decisions about, I want to use model A for this task again because it's very straightforward and I don't need all these parameters, and model B. And actually, I'm happy to pay for model C because again, like, you run this risk. Like, I could make you a birthday cake every time your birthday rolls around.
mm,
It's not that hard to do, and frankly, it doesn't take that much time. But you know what? I'm just going to go to the baker. I'm happy to
exactly,
pay
exactly.
them.
Yes,
Do
yes,
you know what I
yes.
mean? I'm
This,
happy to pay them for this.
yeah,
and they
This
can do
is
the frosting better, and they can write your name better, and maybe they speak
yeah,
French. You know, all these little things that they know better than I do. So I don't think everybody in the whole world is going to download all these open weights and
yeah.
do their things. They'll be used for specific tasks and
Mm,
specific instances. But I do believe that most companies. Here's the thing, though. I do believe that most companies will want to pay for something,
for sure. Exactly.
whether it's directly to the model companies or someone like, we always talk about this, like Red Hat, who just manages that for them, or AWS, who just manages that for them. But at some point, it's not going to be free. And even if you download the weights, it's still not free,
Mhm.
right? But it's just much less expensive because now you're running infrastructure on your things. And most companies can't even afford to do that because the infra that needs to run there is just so expensive and so voluminous that it's going to be hard to do. But in cases where you want that, and I think that's why this ends up being a little bit of a red herring, where it's like, well, if it's open weight, then the models go out of business. Like that's not going to happen, at least not immediately, right? Because people want to pay for some stuff. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, and plus, like, let's not forget that you still need to install the model somewhere, right? Like,
That's my point.
this,
That's the
and
infrastructure thing. It's got to go somewhere. You've got to have the
exactly.
GPUs or the
And as of
Cerebrus chips or something to run this thing. You can't just like download it and be like, "Hey, I'm fine. I'll do it on the weekend with my kids." Like that's not the way this works, right?
and as of now, we just don't have the hardware.
Compute.
It's
Yeah.
just not possible. Like the
No.
general public, 99.9% of the population
No.
cannot install J3 right now. It's just
No.
impossible, right? So that's why, like, it's open way to kill, but we can't use it. So at the end of the day, like, it really doesn't matter. I would say, but it gives first the optionality for the one who want to invest into the hardware, and then they can install it, and then they can fine tune and all of this. At least you have the option, right?
Mhm.
And then it will definitely push for innovation on the hardware side. So I still really believe that
Yeah.
we may be able to get a computer strong enough to actually install the model that we want and that we want to use, or what we need locally. That may be an option, but I think if that happens, we're gonna see the same type of innovation on the data center side, and so which means we're gonna have a $20 offering, to $20 per month offering, to just use
So,
their compute. So and then, to your point, people will pay that type of thing. We are going to
yeah.
get a subscription to get the open weight model from the cloud at a very affordable price, and we won't even need to buy a $4,000 computer.
No.
And even
But
for the
here's
first
the other thing,
one.
Martin. Like, let's say you could download,
Mhm,
let's say Undercover Media, right?
mhm.
Could download the weight you use Anthropic, right? So you're using what? 4.8? What are you using?
So now 5 now. Claude released
Using 5.
Opus 5. So
Are you using Fable 5 or are you using
Claude Opus 5. They just
Opus
released
5?
the Claude Opus 5. So
Right. So let's say you're using Opus 5. If you could download all of the weights, right? Let's say you had a machine or you had the infrastructure to do it, would you do that?
mhm. Right now, no,
Yeah.
because it's not expensive enough on the subscription side, and I don't
So
think I would do
good
it.
point.
Yeah, exactly.
Good point. But also, would you want to be in charge of, not in charge, but would you want to be responsible for like managing the weights?
Yes,
You know what I
exactly.
mean? Fine tuning the weights and all that stuff. Like, would you want to spend the time to do that, or would you want somebody else to do that for you?
So if there is like I mean, let's say, do I want to do that internally, or do I want to do that like externally, like get a service provider to do that for me, or to get the capabilities inside the company?
Yeah.
I think we're gonna go back to the same situation as AWS selling hosting for websites. This is going to be the same type of stuff, right? On-prem and off-prem for
Mm.
databases and for hosting and for all of these things. I think it would make way more sense to put that onto AWS servers. Like, why you want to buy a server and then manage it, manage everything
Right.
yourself?
So, but this is
It's,
the other thing too. Do you know how many parameters Opus 5 has?
I don't know, maybe five, three, three,
Nope,
three,
you're
three,
close.
three, three, 3 trillion, five.
Around
Okay,
5 trillion parameters.
okay.
But those parameters they
Oh, it's
sit in
huge.
an MOE environment. So there are weights associated with all of them. Do you really want to be fine tuning those weights? Really?
Yeah, no, it's true. And it's gonna be super expensive. And we definitely need a lot of innovation on the hardware side to make that work,
Yeah.
right? So
But even if
no,
it
no,
did,
it's not for
let's
today.
say the hardware was done. My point is
Mhm.
that like we do a lot of AI internally
Yeah,
at
yeah, yeah.
Undercover Media. But do I want to be like tweaking or fine tuning the weights around like Do you know what I mean? I just don't think most people want to do
Yeah, no,
that.
you're right. So I don't know how hard it is, right? Like we never tried, we have never done it.
Sure, sure, sure.
Maybe it's simple. I don't know. Like, but
Yeah,
this is part of all the innovation that needs to happen, right? And then at the end of the day, like how easy it is, how hard it is, and then who's gonna do it, right? Like this is definitely part of all the open question that we don't know yet.
but also, isn't this one of these things where like everybody could open weight their models and then nothing would change, or at least it would only
That's a
change on the
possibility.
margin, at
Yes,
least for
that's
today or for the next 2 years. Again,
it is
before all this
possible.
hardware innovation. Sorry, go ahead.
Definitely. No, definitely.
You know
I
what I
mean,
mean?
if tomorrow Opus 5 at a 5 trillion parameters go open weight, it changes absolutely nothing. I can't install it.
That's my point. You
So
wouldn't do anything. You wouldn't do anything differently. You'd be like, that's cool
exactly.
that they've open weighted it, but like, it's not
Nothing
going to change
changed.
the way you do
Yes.
business.
Nothing. Because I can install it and I can fine tune it, and to be frank, my workflow works, and you're right, like it's not worth the risk, right? Because it's not expensive enough.
Right.
So that's why, like, I think it's a good intention. It's good for the direction, right? Like, because now when it's open weight, then other people can do other stuff, like Amazon, for example, right? Or Google Cloud and Microsoft Azure. But yes, we definitely need innovation on the hardware side and on the fine tuning and all of this to be viable and to be really like a real new solution, right?
But
Or
also,
smaller models,
also,
or
what does it
much,
come
much
with?
smaller
Like, does it
models.
come with sliders? Do you know what I mean? Like, you slide the weight over, and how do you even know what the impact is going to be?
And then if it's wrong, you need to keep back up and then go back and all of that. Like it's really annoying now. Like
Right. But so this leads me to believe that somebody needs to convince the people in the United States that have the ability to make this decision that maybe everything should be open weight, not open source, right? Because open source is different. That means that you can see the secret sauce behind how I train my model,
yeah.
why I train it this way.
Mhm.
But the weights is just like, I don't care. Like, I dare you kind of thing, right? You don't even have the money to buy the hardware to run this stuff. And then if you did, you'd have to hire a team of people that understands how MOE works. And then they tweak the weights, not just for you, but you're presuming now that the weight, let's say you and I were both using the same Frontier Lab model, that the weights are the way that you want it, or the same way that I want it. And now you're saying that like everybody, again, on the trading desk is just the thing I use for like every person doing a job. But everybody in the trading desk wants to have the same weights.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I just don't see that happening. But so this is a way I think where everybody should just be like, yep, we'll open weight it. You can download it tomorrow. And then nothing changes. Like, we did what you wanted. And now what do you want from us?
Yeah, no, and it's just super risky, right? Like the day that
Yeah.
somebody does something like that, it's risky, it's scary, right? Like if OpenAI say tomorrow, hey, we're gonna be open weight, it is scary, it's true. But is it going to be really impactful tomorrow? No. I think it's scary just because they don't know what is it in 6 months. But then we can ask the question like, has OpenAI in at any time since they released ChatGPT and slightly before knew what would happen in the next 6 months? I think since day one they have no idea. So my point is that they are very comfortable with not knowing what's gonna happen in six
Exactly.
months.
But
So
here's
yeah,
the other thing too, Martin. Like, and again, just to give an analogy, like in the 1960s, 1970s, 80s, and 90s, like before the turn of the century,
yeah.
like guys in high school, I told you this, would just like they'd open up the hood of their car on the weekends and they'd like change the way this thing
Yeah.
works. They'd change the air intake, they'd add little things to it so that their car could be faster or like have more torque or whatever it was, right? But like if you go out and look for cars today
Mhm.
and open up the hood, the engine is essentially locked down
Mhm.
with
True.
like a massive chips around it. Like it's more like a
Mhm.
computer than it is like an engine.
Mhm.
And I don't think anybody's tweaking that, even though you probably could. But like, what are you going to do? Attach a computer? Because I remember I told you I worked in a car dealership, and I remember the first time I saw somebody plug a computer into the engine and do like an analysis on it and see like, oh, this thing's broken or that thing's broken. But like, no one's going to do that at home anymore, are they? And that's the same thing to me. You could make it accessible.
Yeah.
You could even sell the hardware to do that, which is probably more expensive than just like a regular computer.
Yeah.
But no
Yeah.
one's going to do that, are they? And this is the
Yeah.
same thing that I'm thinking about with this, no?
Not the mass market for sure, right? Like
No.
maybe there are ways for super fan to change your
Sure, sure,
build
sure.
your what is it, like the Nissan, which one is it, like the super famous, like very customizable, like the GR, the Nissan GTR,
Something
like
like that.
something like that, right? Like Yeah, the Nissan GTR. Maybe there's ways that, these people who are passionate about this, they don't have
Yeah,
find the
yeah.
solution, but it's 0.001% of the population, right? We're gonna put the effort into doing this. So for sure, as of now, I feel like it's the same for if OpenAI or Anthropic were to do open source, sorry, open weight.
Right.
But once again, it can change, right? Like it's really like the direction that is interesting to me. It's like, okay, once we open weight, then what do we do next, right? Like what do we, like do we make it easy to fine tune because that's the best? Do we make it easy to host it because that's important? Like what's next, right? I think this is really the like this next question that's important for me.
So can we back up for a second before we talk about what's next?
Yeah.
My question then is, why not you, not Martin, but why are you opposed to this?
Yeah,
Right?
I
Because
don't
it,
see
it would be
any reason.
a
Yeah.
big PR win, I think, if you came out and you were OpenAI and you're like, we will open weight all of our models tomorrow.
Yes.
Hey, Anthropic,
Yes.
what are you doing over there? Because they, with the knowledge, at least from what we're talking about here, and
Yeah.
again, for anybody that's listening, tell us if you disagree with us. But like, why wouldn't they do it? What's their opposition? Obviously, all these companies that are on that open letter said, we'll do it. We're happy to do it. Whether it's the model providers themselves or anybody else that's associated with it, they want that to happen too. And I think part of the reason why is because they know that nothing's going to change materially, at least until the hardware is available for everyone to download it. But by that time, the market should be way more sophisticated around business models, right? They would have more
Yeah.
time to determine what our good business model is. So my question is, who would oppose this and why?
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure, for sure. And plus that, let's also mention like one of the biggest also angle of open weighting your model, which is this distribution, right? Like today,
Yeah.
a company like Nebius, for example, they only distribute the Chinese open weight model. Like
Because why though?
because they are the only one that they can host on their infrastructure,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And so when you are not open weight, you remove a massive part of like a massive group of companies who can be potential partner for you and distribute your model for you, right?
Mm.
Like Cursor, for example, I'm sure they did a deal with Minimax because they needed it to be open weight.
Right.
Cursor should have worked with OpenAI or Anthropic. They are both in Silicon Valley. Like they are probably just next to each other. Why do you go to China? Right? It doesn't make much sense. So that's why like, all of these things don't happen until you are open weight, right? And so I think to me it is such a massive advantage of working with AWS and working with
Mm.
Microsoft Azure and working with Nebius and all of these guys who are gonna distribute and sell for you. Then maybe they think they don't need that. Right? That's possible. I think Anthropic think they don't need that.
Right.
Maybe they think they are already too big and they don't need the distribution and blah blah blah. But I think it's a massive mistake because once again, the guys like AWS, they are going to make money out of AI. They are not going to say, okay, that's not for us. We do nothing. No, no way,
No,
right? like
not gonna happen.
AWS, they want to make money. They want to grow their stock price. They want to participate in the AI race. They want to be the biggest company in the world in 10 years. They are going to do something. If this something means sell compute, they are going to do whatever it takes to sell compute, right?
Compute, exactly.
And so if they need to host open source, open weight model, they are going to host open weight model. So my point here is that if you don't partner with those guys, they are going to be competing with you, right? And I prefer to work with AWS and Microsoft and Google and Nebius and everybody else rather than competing with everybody else. I think this is a
So
better.
again, this gets back to the question: is who would oppose it? And here's the other thing:
Exactly.
if you're out there competing, right, and you know that if you change this to open weight, that not nobody, but again, a small, very very small subset of people are going to be able that have the hardware to be able to run this. And that by the time everybody has access to the hardware, they'll be in a flow where they're not going to want to download the models and manage it internally. They're going to hire someone to do that for them.
Yeah.
Aren't you now giving away leadership to these open weight Chinese companies because they can have the PR and marketing going, hey, we're open weight. These guys are hiding like what they're doing, even if it doesn't change anything. So if you're an American model, if you're OpenAI, or if you're Anthropic, or even if you're Meta, right, Muse Spark, or if you're Grok, wouldn't you just be like, yep, we're open weight tomorrow? Now what do you
Yeah.
want to? What's your next move? Because that's if
Exactly.
that's the only advantage
Yeah.
you have, well, we're with you now. Because it doesn't change the cost structure necessarily, right? You can still the subscription price doesn't need to change necessarily because only a small subset of people are actually going to have the capacity to actually run those models locally or whatever that means in their cloud infrastructure as well. So what are we doing here, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. No, it's true. It's true. And that's why I think there's so many companies who sign this letter, right? They are
Mhm.
like, yeah, sure, right? Let's just do it now, right? Let's just
So
do it
what so
now.
what do you think? Let's say right, because we've kind of run through this, right? Like how much competitive independence do open weights actually give these companies? Do you know what I mean? In the sense that like if every model is open weighted,
Mhm.
first of all, does it matter? And I think that what we've kind of realized now is it doesn't matter as much as it seemed like it did a few weeks ago, right? When we first started talking about this. Right. And secondly, we believe, at least I believe, and I think you'd agree with this, is that like most people aren't going to give up their subscriptions.
Mhm.
And it doesn't change the price per compute, right? I don't know what to say, right? But it doesn't change the price per compute necessarily, although there will be some pressure, I think, on some of these companies. And this is a different discussion on OpenAI and Anthropic to lower their prices just to be in line with what Grok is doing and what Muse Spark is doing as well, right?
So I would say it even help with compute because if all of a sudden you can have AWS who install your model and then distribute it at the same price,
Mm.
then you don't need to have the compute yourself, right? Like so it actually help
I mean,
there.
if you're Anthropic or OpenAI,
Yeah,
yeah.
yes, if you
Yeah, yeah.
Anthropic
Yep. Yep.
and OpenAI,
Yep.
so it
Good
can
point.
actually help there. And because OpenAI and Anthropic don't have their own compute for whatever reason,
Bad planning.
um, exactly, like they could be in a position to actually accept this type of deal, right? Like because
Mm.
they could be like, yeah, I mean, actually, you know what? Like that may be the next phase. That may be
Okay.
the very next announcement, which means OpenAI and Anthropic goes open weight and then it's really all on AWS, Google, and Microsoft. And then we just focus on them because they are the one who are going to distribute the models themselves because they have the compute. And so why they would make a deal to sell the compute to OpenAI and then OpenAI sell the subscription at the margin of the compute where we can just cut the middleman and then goes directly to AWS basically,
Exactly.
right? So that's why I think OpenAI and Anthropic needs to protect themselves against that, right? Like
So this is the other big question, Martin, is
exactly.
if all this stuff goes open weight and if people start lowering prices to compete with the Chinese models, right? And again, to be fair, Grok as well is very inexpensive. Yeah. Well,
Yes,
Grok,
yes.
what, like 4.5? I can't remember what the number is anymore.
Mhm.
um, but it's kind of priced itself in line with some of these open weight Chinese models, even without
Yes.
open weighting itself. So like even the open weight or not open weight, the price is still much lower.
Yep.
But here's the bigger question, not bigger necessarily, but here's another important thing to think about, and that is which part of the value chain becomes more valuable
Mhm.
when all of these models can get run locally? Is it the hardware makers? Is it the chip makers? Is it the cloud provider? Like, where does the value accrue? We've been talking about this for a while.
Mhm.
Do you know
Mhm.
what I mean? Because if we could download the models and if it was cheap enough to actually hire someone to run it so that you could have those weights exactly the way you wanted them to be,
Yeah.
we would consider doing it. But then
Yeah.
who would we pay for what? Because we'd have to pay somebody for something, right? So where does it fit in the value chain? Who makes the most money now,
So I think
right?
there's
And
three
sorry, go
options.
ahead.
I think there's three options. There are three options as of now with what we've seen so far. Okay, and maybe there will be more later. That's what I mean. But I
Go
think
ahead.
right now, with the state of now, there's three that I would consider very possible.
Go ahead.
The first one is a company like AMD, Nvidia, Lenovo to sell us a computer on which we can install the model itself. Okay, so AI on
How
device,
about Apple?
basically, or Apple as well, right?
Yeah,
Like I think I put Apple in a slightly different category because I think they want to do something different, maybe with smaller models and all of that.
they do.
But and Nvidia and AMD both have already launched their computer at $5,000
Yep.
price points where you can actually install something. So they are already like launch something into this category. So
Mm,
just made that 10 times bigger,
right.
basically, right?
Yeah,
Like from 128 gigabytes of RAM that they have right now to like maybe 1.5 thousand, right?
yeah.
Like with 10x bigger than what they have right now.
Right.
So I think that's possibility one. That's a route that's possible. Possibility two is basically to do very similar, but in the cloud, right? Like, so basically we install the models in the cloud, and then it gets to compute. Okay, so which means like
Right.
we pay our subscription. I don't think we're gonna pay a $20 or $100 subscription to AWS. That's not their business model.
No.
AWS will stay on the enterprise side. They will stay multi-million dollars deal to big companies, but we may buy our $20 subscription to somebody to whom we are buying website hosting right now. Ionos, GoDaddy, all of these guys, like they can start selling tomorrow $20 subscription to OpenAI, for example, or to Minimax, or to all the model involved, right? And so, and I think that these two questions are linked to hardware. Like when we're gonna see improvement on the hardware side, then we are going to see either computer or cloud or both, basically. And then I think the third option, the third where we can get money, where we can make a lot of money, is on the inference chip, because
On the inference chips, yeah.
yes, on the inference chips, because either it's on my device, so on my AMD computer that I bought, or it's in the cloud, or it's like whatever, like how I'm gonna use it. I think, like I feel right now, the more I think about it, the more I think we may use the training chip for a short period of time to actually train the model. But once my model is there, we're gonna use the inference chip non-stop to actually use the model itself. And so maybe at some point, like right now we have new model coming out like every week.
Right.
So it's hard to imagine that we use the same model for 2 years, for example. But at some point, I think we're gonna slow down. I think we are not going to get like new model every couple of weeks. And I lost my camera, super. And so which means we are going to use the inference chip maybe more and more and more and more. So that's 3 ideas that I have. Go ahead,
So
Mike.
let me just address some of this stuff with you. But like,
Yeah.
so first of all, the maximum amount of memory you can have on a Mac Studio right now is only 96 gigabytes. And for a Mac Mini, it's only 48 gigabytes. So getting up to like 1,000 for a Mac is going to be hard, right?
Yep, it is. I'm here. I'm just like trying to fix my camera.
That's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I saw something. And the second thing is, what does it do if you want the model to interact with your proprietary data?
Yeah.
But you've spent the last 5 years, like Idan Salzberg, right, the CTO at Agoda, saying, we want to have a hybrid cloud implementation where some of our data is local and some of it's in the cloud. What is the impact? Do you know what I mean? What is the impact on how fast the model can interact with the data, and how does it know like which data to use if some of it's in the cloud and some of it's on-prem? What is the impact there?
Yeah, I think it will really depends on what is going to be the best solution. Like, first of all, is it actually going to be possible to host it on-prem? Right? Like, is it actually going to be possible?
I'm just talking about the data,
Yeah.
not about the model itself, right? Because the model could still be in the cloud, but how does it know where to go? Like, which pointer do you have to give it so it goes, oh, some of that data is on-prem, some of it's actually, and what does it do to the speed of calculation and of the inference stuff that we were talking about?
So I think here one of the best solutions would be to either fine-tune or post-train a model. You just put your data into the model itself, and then it's there. And so then, for example, the M dash, you just put into the model, never use M dash. And so from now on, there is no more M dash, and you don't need to put that into any of your prompts.
It really bothers you.
No, but it's so stupid, right? Like, you need to put that into everything that you send to the AI if you don't want M dashes. It's so stupid, right? And so
it's stupid.
It's so inefficient. And that's the same for style. It's the same for so many things, that we need to keep a data set of all this data that we need to always say to the AI, because the AI doesn't do what we want, like from the get-go. But as soon as we can either post-train or fine-tune it, then we can put all of these things directly into the model, and then that disappear from the data sets, basically. So this is going to be like this question of, like, can we fine tune? Is it a viable solution? Can we post train? Like, how do we put the data somewhere? Do we put that into the model? So then, is the model super safe? I think there is a ton of question here, and I don't think we have any answer, to be honest. I think it's like all the stuff that need to be tested. And to be frank, maybe we don't have the answer yet, because one, the Chinese model were not good enough so far, and now they start to be good enough to
They're getting
actually,
closer and closer, though. Yeah.
yeah, to actually make sense, to actually test them, but also maybe because they are Chinese, I can imagine an American insurance company or a bank in America much preferring to use an American model to fine tune and to put their data inside than using a Chinese model that they are not super sure about everything. So if tomorrow OpenAI and Anthropic open weights their model as well, and now the bench can fine tune it, I think they will much prefer to buy US technology to actually put their data inside and stuff like that.
But
So we may see.
So this gets back to this geopolitical stuff that we're talking about. Like, since when did we not trust the Chinese model? Do you know what I mean? Like if the Japanese came out with the model, or if India came out with the model, be like, that's fine. Do you know what I mean? Like, what is it about China as a country that we just simply don't trust? And when I say we, I'm just saying it like metaphorically, but like, why would we trust their models any more, any less than we would like from India? Like, India doesn't do any sort of industrial espionage. It's just like a bunch of nice guys over there cranking out stuff in Bangalore. Do you know what I mean? Like, what's the difference?
Yeah, I don't know. You
don't know. Neither do I. It's in a way, it's a rhetorical question. Can I say this though too? Just to get back to where stuff is going to fall in the value chain, don't you? Because you said like you just put your data in the model, and then you're good to go. But I think it's slightly too simplified, and I'll tell you why. Because there's no such thing as static data.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. And again, I'm not commenting on your idea here. You want to pump all that data into the model as it's coming out, but doesn't it mean that a lot of the value in the AI chain is still going to be around how to manage the data that's associated with the stuff that you're putting through a large language model or whatever comes after that, right? Because the data itself is key, and it's dynamic.
Yes.
Like literally during the time that we're doing this show, we're creating more and more visual, right, in the video, audio, and transcription data. Like, we're just creating data after data after data, and we don't know if the words are right? So someone's gonna have to look at the transcript to make sure that that's 100% correct, because we know that what is it, Whisper doesn't get 100% of the words correctly. So maybe there's a ton of money to be made in just like going, we will make sure that all of your data is like 90-something%
that's true.
viable. Do you know what I mean? That's got to be one of the, it's not the only place, because the chips matter, and of course the compute matters and stuff like that. But like the compute that AWS has, is it any faster than the compute that Microsoft or or SpaceX has? Like, you know what I mean? Like, is Colossus 1 any slower or any worse than AWS's Bedrock? I don't think so, right? Because they're probably buying all the same components, but the data management stuff is going to be highly differentiated, I think.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think that's a fourth strong possibility of making money in the AI chain. And even if we fine tune another way, like we can imagine solution of like continuous fine tuning, basically, right? Like, so every time there's new data, we like, almost in real time at some point, just fine tune the models. So then the model just know what are the data, right? Like, and then like right now, I don't know, like right now, or maybe at first we don't have like a 1 week gap, for example, like we run one big, training during the weekend, for example, and then we put to go for the next week, and then it's generated daily, and then it will get, every 6 hours, and then it will get almost instant, right? We may see a progression towards this for sectors like banking, like insurance, and others who have data that are just real time and constant. So which means then we may get to a point where the model gets way too big because they have way too much data. And so then the next question is going to be, okay, so now it just makes no sense to just keep making models that are bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Right. So now we don't need to create like splits of a lot of small models. And basically it goes back to how you host stuff, right? Like if you have a global website, take, I don't know, for example, Amazon.com, which is something that's global, like Amazon.com, it doesn't run on one server. It's impossible. There's no physical computer that's big enough to host Amazon.com traffic and compute that is required. So which means you get to split it across plenty of servers. But somebody in France needs to see the same thing as someone in Australia. So the two servers need to be in sync. And so then this is where the big problem starts to come, because this is super hard to do this to do this at scale and at the speed of Amazon. So we can see the same type of thing for the models, right? Like we train them, we make them bigger because they have our own data. Then at some point they get too big, so then we need to split them, distribute them across multiple servers. And now it's gonna be like, I mean, we know how to do that for websites. We will need to learn how to do that for models as well. So yeah, I see that as a possibility. Yeah.
So can I make another point? And you just reminded me about this when you talk about the websites. You know, like for everyone that's using Squarespace or Wix or whatever, you'll see where this is going in a second. Right. And then on the shopping side, like for everyone that has a Shopify store, I get the sense that like there's maybe like 5 to 10 popular ways to use it so that everybody's store ends up looking the same, or everybody's website ends up looking pretty generic because they're using the same tools, the same, even if they're AI enabled tools to build it. And we were having a conversation with someone today about like writing, like the LLMs just write to the average of what everybody else in the world has written, which means that anything that's written by an LLM seems obvious to like you and me and to this guy that we were having a conversation with today on ATP Insights, right? But does that mean that it's also the same for coding? Do you know what I mean? And at the end of the day, does that mean that a lot of the code that gets generated is going to look like a lot of the other code that gets generated? Because at the end of the day, it's going out and looking at the code that's out there, at least it's available to it, and going, oh, now I know how to do that because this is the way that everybody's doing it on a median level. And if that's the case, then do the models, again, does there need to be another way to differentiate what the output is so that the coding is different and the writing is different, so that's, again, more, so it's less non-standard, right? Because if you type a prompt into, and again, I know it's I know it's probabilistic, right? So it's not always going to give the same result. But like if you type a prompt into Anthropic and I type the same prompt into Anthropic, we're going to get something that's pretty close, particularly if it's long form. Yeah. Is it the same thing for code?
No idea. I never opened any of the files that Anthropic code for me, so so I have no idea.
Why did I ask? My bad.
So I have no idea. I think we are in the world of as long as it works, it doesn't matter. So I think this is how I would approach it. But I see what you mean, and it makes me think, Michael, about like do you remember like just after the launch of ChatGPT, people were saying, hey, look, it can write in your voice, it can write, in the way that you speak, it can write in the same way that you write.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
And it was like one of the biggest value proposition, but I would say one of the biggest things people were excited about back in 2022 and 2023, right?
Right. So it can sound like Michael, even if Michael's not writing it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. And the way that people were doing that was by giving a lot of example of Michael's writing. So like take a book from Michael, then give it to at the beginning of your prompt. Here is how I write, and then do this thing in the same style as me, basically, right? And so that's what people were doing. I think it disappeared now. I don't think there's a lot of people who talk about that anymore.
I don't think so either.
Because like just putting a book of like so much example of how you write just makes no sense, right? So I think,
but also, is that the only example? Because here's the thing, Martin. Let's say there's one thing that I've written, just one book. Let's just say as an example for me. And then we train the model to write like that. It's a long book. Let's say it's 1,000 pages of really great writing, which is all I would do, right? Let's just say that. At some point, the writing that's supposed to mimic that is going to outweigh that thing, because I'm just going to keep using that as the source, which means that every time I write something now, the model's going to go look at the stuff that was generated by the LLM, and it's going to get more and more and more dumbed down and more like in the median space, so that first opus that I wrote, no pun intended, is now going to have less weight in the context of all the stuff that I've written, because now all the stuff that I've written is also including the stuff that was AI generated.
If you put the stuff AI generated inside, yes. If you don't, if you just keep your data clean with only your data and not the result of the AI.
But I would say like humans are fundamentally lazy. Do you know what I mean? Like that's not going to happen. Let's be realistic about it, right?
this is one of the condition of AGI is like self-learning, right? Like if you have,
Yeah.
if you get to the point, I mean, if we want AGI, so which means we need the AI to be able to actually do things on its own and progress on its own, and then just make progress and become completely independent, we need the AI to self-learn, right? And so right now, the only way that we have an AI that self-learn is by just having a database of all the knowledge. So the book, right? Like we just store all the information into a book, and we say to the AI, both learn from the book, that's your knowledge, and then when you have a new knowledge, add that to the book as well, right? So that's how we do it right now. Tomorrow we will do the same thing with fine-tuning. So like just fine-tune yourself, right? Like when you learn something new, basically, or when there's a new information that's interesting. So yeah, no, this is going to be one of the area to look at in the next. I think it's gonna take some time. I think the hardware is not gonna get cheap anytime soon. I think we are still really,
I
really
don't think
far.
so either.
Yeah, I
Not cheap
don't.
enough to be able to do this.
Yes,
There's no
yes, yes, yes.
incentive for that to happen,
So there is
to be
like,
fair.
I mean, there is like all the fine tuning that could happen in the big companies, and then maybe the small one as well. Like we don't really know what are the possibilities yet because we never really done it, right?
Yeah.
So maybe this will need to start by the large enterprise, so the Oracle, for example, the AWS, like these guys, because they have enough data to make it. I mean, they have the money to pay for a big solution, so which means like we don't need to get the cost down too low, right? Like some people have a lot of money, so that's good. But yeah, for that to access the general public and the very large enterprises like undercover media, the cost will need to get much lower. So
Right. But again, let's ask this question. I'm just while you're talking a little bit, I wanted to look on the Apple website and just think, do they make a Mac Pro anymore? They don't.
you mean the MacBook Pro?
No, not a MacBook Pro, a Mac Pro, like the big tower machine that
Oh,
you can.
we don't do it anymore. Is
I
my
don't
studio
see
now?
it. The Mac Studio feels like the biggest one that they have.
Interesting.
And then
Okay.
there's a Mac Mini, and then there's the iMac,
Okay.
and then there's the MacBook Pro, the MacBook Air, the MacBook Neo.
Okay.
Let me just go to desktops. Yeah, there's the iMac, the Mac Mini, and the Mac Studio. There is no MacBook. There's no Mac Pro. The only reason why I'm bringing this up is Apple has essentially given up on building a machine big enough, fast enough, strong enough, and configurable enough so that they could run AI on it, which is why they're going for this on-device, lighter, cooler, easier to run model thing, right? Because they don't even have a machine that could handle anything yet.
So let's see. Yep. So that's that's I think all of the possibilities for the next generation of AI usage, AI product, and people who are going to make money with AI. Yep.
One more thing. Do you sorry, was there something else you want to say?
No, I just wonder like if anyone has any other ideas or you see any startup, any cool ideas, any product that people build that we didn't mention, like who are going to be the next big players in AI, feel free to put in the comments.
Exactly. Do we run into a situation again where like there's some models that can never be open weighted just because again they're just too dangerous?
No, I think this is going to disappear. I think this is going to disappear. First, this marketing, I think, hits its limit. I don't think anyone
You do, don't you? I don't think
believe
you're
it
wrong,
anymore.
actually.
I think it's, I don't know. I think like the last couple of months from Anthropic, I think they pushed it too far. Like really, it makes no sense. I think at some point, like people want stability. I think it was okay when it was the frontier, but now it's not the frontier. I mean, sorry, let me rephrase it. I think it was okay when it was the only possibility to access what we need to for our use cases.
Yeah.
Okay, so which means like if I'm frustrated because Opus 3 is not good enough and there's only so little that I can do, but I really want Opus 4 because now I can do more with AI. That's different story. But now we are not in this context anymore. Now the market has completely changed. Now Opus 4.6 really was the first model to be good enough for maybe for a long time, for many years, right? And so, which means everything after that, Fable, Mythos, has just has some benefit, but not for everybody, right? Like it's just for some clients are going to be happy to use them, but a lot of clients are just going to be, I get Opus 4.8 now, I'm fine. I just don't want to spend more time,
Well, that's why I
more
asked you at the
money.
beginning, are you
Exactly.
using Opus 5?
Yes, so I use Opus 5, and then that's fine because that's the same price as it was before. Like, I mean, I'm happy with the Opus family. I don't like. I mean, I see all the craziness around Mythos and Fable, but I don't need them. Right? That's really the truth, right? I don't need them, and so which means that if you say to me it's too dangerous to be true, to be released and blah blah blah, it doesn't have any effect on me because I don't need them, right? Like, so that's my point. Like, I think we are not anymore in the phase of 2025 where we absolutely had to use the latest model. This is not the case anymore. Now, either the open weight like Kimi or Opus, now we are in a phase where we want something good enough and that's cheap enough so that we can do a lot of it. That's it.
Got it. You don't want to spend a moment talking about whether Anthropic is going to go back to this idea of we're just going to charge people way more money?
I mean, if they do that.
You know what I mean, though? Because we haven't even thought about this yet, but like we haven't talked about it today, but this idea of like, we're going to charge people for their API usage or whatever it is, right? Because they've just like stopped doing that now, no?
I mean, they put Fable back into a subscription forever, right? Like, so super surprising. So yeah, they are not going to try to charge you for the API. Now it's a subscription, so it's good. Then Opus is part of the subscription. So yeah, no, it looks like everything stay in the subscription now. But yeah, like what's gonna happen with them? Like how they are going to? I think that and Tropic are the one that seems the most distant, right, from all of this new innovation and new wave of AI, which is a little bit worrisome, right? Like, what are they thinking? Do they still think they can hold the position, and they believe they can still like compete in a changing market like this?
Yeah.
Maybe short term, it's true that maybe, even if OpenAI goes open source or open weight, it doesn't change anything. Maybe, but maybe it does, right? Like maybe it does a lot. Like if for some reason the banks and the insurance company they want to fine tune tomorrow or in 3 months or in 6 months, and they can only do that on OpenAI models because that's the only one that are open weights, then it's going to be the beginning of the new way of using AI.
Yeah, I don't disagree with this. Let's switch topics now.
Yes, let's talk about the next one.
Okay, let's talk about Nvidia is discussing the provision. This is actually super interesting to me, of $250 billion to OpenAI for compute.
Okay.
Okay. And first of all, I want to run through something with you. I always ask you these questions to introduce them because you're the only other guy on this thing. I mean, we can ask the chat as well, but like, what do you think OpenAI's revenue, annual revenue was in 2025?
15?
I'm sorry, not OpenAI. Sorry, excuse me, Nvidia, right? Since they're the
Nvidia.
ones going to provide the money.
Ooh, Nvidia's revenue. I don't know, but that's hundreds of billions.
Yeah, hundreds of billions, right? So fiscal year 2025, $130 billion.
Okay.
Which was up, by the way, 100% from 2024. More, but I'm just rounding it.
Okay.
Fiscal 2026 was $215 billion, up 65%.
Oh, wow.
Where the fondue are they going to get money, $250 billion, to fund anything that OpenAI wants to do? Okay, let's just put that thought into people's head, and then let me run through some of this for you, okay?
Okay, yeah.
Because I actually thought this was fascinating. NVIDIA is discussing a financing guarantee of roughly $250 billion that would support OpenAI's long-term lease commitments at a proposed AI computing campus in Southern Ohio. Okay, now this would not necessarily require NVIDIA to provide the full amount. It would just like strengthen the credit behind OpenAI's obligations, allowing OpenAI to borrow at more favorable rates. But like, wouldn't NVIDIA have to put up some kind of collateral? Anyway, this whole thing is under negotiation. But this broader project that's happening in Ohio could cost around $500 billion, like $500 billion. And about $350 billion may be required for computing hardware, separate from the guarantee. That's going to get you like now it's almost $1 trillion. Now, this campus in Southern Ohio is designed for as much as 10 gigawatts of data center capacity with an initial 800 megawatt, so tiny, less than 1/10, targeted for 2028. But all this stuff is targeted and proposed and blah, blah, blah. Now, who else is involved here, Martin, that makes this interesting? SoftBank.
Yes.
Right. So SoftBank has started a company that they call SB Energy, and they plan to develop the site on this land at whatever. And its power plant includes at least 9.2 gigawatts of natural gas generation. And SB Energy is also committed to funding $4.2 billion, while AOP Ohio expects grid power to begin reaching the site in 2029. So even if the site is built for an 800 megawatt phase to start in 2028, it's not going to have any power reaching the site. It's not going to be on the grid until 2029.
Oh wow. Okay.
If my memory serves me correctly, it's still July 2026. That's 3 years out, and that's if they start like tomorrow.
Okay.
Now,
So,
one more
so
thing. Let me.
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Now, what's the plan? Like, they want to build like their own data center for OpenAI, like the OpenAI compute, or do they want to pay AWS and Microsoft to do it for them?
No. SB Energy is going to build this thing, and
Okay.
SBI. Sorry, it's not SBI. SoftBank is going to build this thing. SB Energy is going to build this thing, and they're going to, in the same way that SpaceX rents Colossus to Anthropic and to other people.
Okay.
This is just going to be a massive AI-enabled data center, and
for everybody.
But because OpenAI maybe wants to take all of this capacity, which again is insane. But how are they going to make any money, Martin, if let's just say their revenue this year is $60 billion?
Okay.
Let's just say, but this thing is going to cost $250 billion, or $350 billion may be required for computing hardware separate from the proposed guarantee just to build the place. Like, how does any of this money make any sense at all? and so that's just the details. The project connects OpenAI's compute ambitions, their desire, their need for more compute, right? SoftBank's infrastructure strategy, which we did an entire segment, if not more than one segment on this before, Nvidia's chip business, right? So all these people are now together, and the government of Ohio, but also the government of the United States, the energy policy as well. Because remember, they're going to use natural gas for this, not just like, you know what I mean? So it's a different type of energy that's going to be built here. And it's like a whole new way to finance this AI infrastructure, right? So a company like Nvidia, which is what, a $5 trillion company now, a $3 trillion company, whatever, it's trillions of dollars. They're using their balance sheet to make or to help less creditworthy companies financeable. I've never seen anything like this before, man. Sorry, go ahead. You were going to say something.
No, I see what you mean. So basically, like here, the big question is around the financing itself, right? Like not about the data center or the fact that it's OpenAI or Anthropic, maybe. Like it was like if everybody said they want to be involved, but people are like, you just can't finance it this way. It just makes no sense, basically, right?
Right.
Okay, so that's, I mean, financing of crazy stuff is what leads to disaster very often. So,
sorry, can you say that? Can you just explain that in slightly more? It's just funny. Like, sorry, this is ridiculous.
I mean, this is how you get like big bubbles, and then things crash, and then it's the end of the world, basically, right? Like, so it's not good when financing goes wrong.
So you know who's really opposed to this?
Okay, go ahead.
Dr. Michael Burry.
Yes. He was the guy of that very famously bet against the market in 2008, against the real estate markets, right?
I just wish I could have been in some of those meetings where he like sauntered into like the offices of Goldman Sachs or Lehman Brothers and was like, okay, just let me get this straight. So you have all these CDOs that are worth multiple $1 billion. What if I wanted to do like a reverse bet for like $100 million? And they were like, sure, we'll price that at X. And he was like, what if I wanted to do $500 million? And they started looking at each other like, you're insane.
Yes.
Like I bet, this is one of those situations, Mart, where you saw the movie The Big Short.
Yes.
So they tried to dramatize like what it would look like in one of those meetings. And I always say, like, do you know how they had the Wolf of Wall Street, and they were saying like, oh my God, the stuff that they were doing was so insane with like the cocaine and the dwarf throwing and all this other crap, right? They were like, that could never happen. That had to be exaggerated. And if you talk to anybody who actually worked on Wall Street at that time, they were like, nah, kind of like just like that. If not worse, but because it was so much worse, you couldn't put it on film. I think this is probably true for the meetings that Dr. Michael Burry was in.
Yes.
Where
That
like
must have
just
been
the
true.
reactions were just like, you are retarded. Whatever it was, like
Yeah,
you
yeah,
just
yeah.
sure we'll do it. Whatever size you want, we'll do the other side of this trade because we control the market. But the point is not about that. But the point is that like I think there's a real story here around what this means about the constraints, the financial constraints, the real financial constraints on AI expansion, right? Because now it's
Okay.
not just limited to can we produce enough chips fast enough? Can we produce enough power fast enough? Can we build a data center fast enough? It's like, do we even need to spend $250 billion on this stuff? Like, does any of the money make sense? And what does it say about the fact that like the companies that want to use the compute can't afford it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, yeah, it's an interesting question. It looks like they need the computer, or at least they will need it in 5 to 10 years. I mean, if AI is cheap expanding and keep being implemented into companies, and we still have more and more use cases, I don't think we are even close to the maximum of AI usage in the world or in any countries. I think we are still really, really, really small in terms of total token consumption, I would say. So it's going to increase, and so which means that's why I'm just bullish on the compute side, because we're just gonna use more AI, so which means we need more compute. Pretty straightforward. So that's part of the story. I definitely like it. I'm like, okay, cool. And plus, if OpenAI is finally involved into building their own compute, perfect. That's what we've been talking about like forever. They should definitely do it. So that's good. But then, yeah, if it's come at the cost of like shady financing scheme, I think that's very dangerous. Right now, we are entering an area of like big danger, I think. So,
Well, big danger, but let's put some stuff into context. According to the Google's Gemini machine, OpenAI's annualized revenue run rate has approached approximately $2 billion a month.
okay.
So you don't need to be like a genius mathematician to figure out that's somewhere between 24 and $25 billion a year. Like if you can't multiply 2 times 12, you've got other problems. How can they possibly afford, because their planned computing expenditure. So let's back up for a second, right? OpenAI reportedly lacks an investment grade credit rating. They cannot go out and borrow this money on themselves, on their own, from banks or whomever. Right? So that the fact that they don't have an investment grade credit rating means that they can't, like lenders are less comfortable giving them money. Right? Particularly for a project where repayment depends heavily on OpenAI's future lease payments, right? So they're going to lease this thing from somebody. So Nvidia's going out and going, don't worry, this is like my little cousin or my little brother. We've got plenty of money. We'll kind of co-sign for them. But even if they do that, OpenAI, and remember we had this problem with OpenAI's CFO, what was it, a few months ago, who was like, I don't know where we're going to get the money for any of this stuff. They're planned that they've announced computing expenditure, Martin, for 2026, no, through 2030, which again, we're almost at the end of 2026. So like for the next 3.5 years is $750 billion just for compute. Okay. And we talked about this too, right? If they don't do their IPO, VCs aren't going to fund this. And if they put off their IPO, well, then we know that they're not going to, at least we have high level of confidence that the valuation of the company is not going to meet its $1.5 to $1.75 trillion target.
Yeah.
Which again is going to be, it's like a vicious circle as opposed to a virtuous circle of saying they're not going to be able to raise enough money to then meet their commitments on the compute side. So they're going to have to borrow money. But again, because they don't have an investment grade credit rating, like all these things are coming home to roost all at the same time. Where are they going to get $750 billion of compute spend when their annualized revenue is only $25 billion?
And in a market where now there is much more competition as well, right? Like the entire
Yeah.
first segment of the show today was about open weight models. Now it's a possibility, right? Like so that's why like maybe actually at the end of the day they need to do open weights, like no choice. They just can't afford the financial the financial disaster that they have created for themselves,
Yeah.
basically, right? Like because they raise so much money at such a high valuation and they are so far away from profitability and they need so much money to just keep the business afloat, then basically give up, right? Stop here, right? Like
Right.
just stop here, go back to research only, stop hosting, and then just let the guys who know how to sell compute to actually do that, basically,
Right.
right?
But
And then
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, then you just do open weights, you just do licensing deal with all the hyperscalers, and then let them handle the cloud business. And then that's pretty much it, right? That's like an exit that will destroy the valuation of the company. Like really, if they do something like that, they're gonna go down to like so much. But at least their chances to actually stay there and not be bankrupt are much higher, right? So
Well,
so
well, don't be bankrupt. So this brings up another question that I had in our previous segment, but I wanted to wait until this segment because I think we can combine those two things together, which we'll get to in a moment. But here's the big problem for me, and I want you to think about this and then tell me what you think about it. And again, in the chat as well, please have the chat tell me what you think about this too. And that is the structure that they're building here with essentially Nvidia kind of co-signing a loan for them, using its own market value and its own sort of financial strength into borrowing capacity for OpenAI. But if you remove the term OpenAI and just replace the description of OpenAI, which is Nvidia's largest customer,
okay.
now you have an even bigger problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because if OpenAI is Nvidia's largest customer, then Nvidia's market cap and its financial strength is relying
On OpenAI.
on OpenAI, which doesn't have enough money to pay for the things that it's already ordered.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? So again, let's get back to the restaurant, the pizza shop that I love to go to. If I walk in and order 1,000 pizzas and the pizza shop is the one funding me buying the pizzas, based on the business that I give them and I'm their largest pizza buying customer,
Yeah,
at
it's a
some
bit of a
point,
problem.
again,
Yeah.
this is going to create a problem, right?
Yeah.
Because I can't pay for the pizza
Yeah, no, it's true.
without the
It's
money that
true.
they're giving me. And they're only giving me that money because I'm paying them with their
Yeah.
money for the pizza that I can't afford.
Mm.
And I'm their largest customer. So if I walk away and be like, yeah, you know what? You're not going to lend me any more money. I can't buy any more of your pizzas. What's going to happen to the pizza shop now? Because now they're in debt
Mm.
for money that they expected me to generate through my business that was using their pizza, in this case, their chips, to generate enough revenue to then pay it off at some point. But it doesn't appear that that's going to be possible soon, does it?
I think soon is the biggest question, right? Like, is it going to be possible at some point? Yeah, I think so. Like, I think once again, I don't think our AI usage is going to decrease. I think it's going to massively increase in the
It
next
is,
couple of years.
but again,
But how do
this
we get
gets
there? Mm.
this gets back to the Alan Greenspan. I think it was Alan Greenspan who said the market can be irrational for a lot longer than you can
Yeah.
be solvent.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think, and that's why like, I really like, I think like the $1 million question here, Michael, is like how healthy the finance of OpenAI are. Like how long can they sustain? Like do they need to buy all of this compute and they cancel deals?
Mm.
Can they go back to a normal situation and then handle the time that the market is just like basically lacking the compute that they need, right? Like how far are they from being able to stay afloat, basically, right? Like if they
Well,
need to be profitable tomorrow, or at
yeah.
least reduce the loss to let's say $10 billion per year, like how far are they from that point, basically, right?
So
So
here's the other thing that's actually really interesting, right? Because we have precedent for this, and we've talked about this a lot, but let's just say it.
mm,
Um, way too much fiber was built in the early 2000s when people expected internet demand and everybody wanted to be a telco, when everybody expected internet demand to go over the fiber optic cables that were getting laid all over the world, both underground and undersea. And what ended up happening is when the internet bubble, at least in the late 90s and early 2000s, when that bubble burst, it left that fiber optic cable basically dead. But fiber optic cable in and of itself doesn't change. You know what I mean? Like it does. It can get better for sure. I'm not going to argue with people about the technical specifications around fiber optic cable. But somebody at some point said, like, that cable's there. It's been laid underground or laid under the sea. We can still use it.
Yeah.
But a chip that Nvidia builds and designs today is going to be obsolete in like 3 to 5 years. So even if somehow they convince themselves and OpenAI to build this data center and to build this compute, at some point it's going to become obsolete. They're going to have to spend more money to upgrade it. So it's kind of a different animal.
Especially if we start seeing more competition from the Chinese, for example.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
if on the Chinese side they don't have the same financing problem because of some sort of magic, and then they start to have chips as
Or just
well
not
that are
overspending,
competing.
even
Yeah.
if it's not magic, even if they just don't overspend, right?
Yes. And so if
Sorry,
we
go
start
ahead.
to have like a competing solution, right, which means the Nvidia chips actually get obsolete faster, right? Like the same way Opus 4.6 is obsolete right now in terms of frontier models, right? It's not the frontier model anymore, but it was back in February. So in basically 4 months, the model went from being the frontier, the best model in the world, to an average model, I would say right now, right? It's still good, but it's not the best. And that's because of competition. So if Nvidia start to have competition that start to be much stronger, right, then it can actually increase the pace of making their hardware obsolete. And so that's
Right.
increase the pace of the problem.
So one other thing that comes into play, right, is that we're also presuming that energy creation and production is going to be static, meaning the way that energy gets built and sold is going to remain static. And yet, and again, I don't want to get into the politics of this, right? But the massive amounts of funding reduction in the United States for alternative fuels has been spectacular, right? Because of course, fossil fuels will last forever. But the Chinese scientists, and I saw this on X today, built an artificial sun.
Okay.
I'm not kidding.
When it comes to alternative energy, like in China, they just got to a point where it gets crazy right now.
Just insane. Because again, let's sit in the meeting. Hey, like this gas-fired plant that we're building is kind of cool, but like, why don't we just build a sun? And
It's
some
much
guy
better,
goes,
right?
I mean, we're China. We could probably try that. What's it going to cost? Who knows? But let's just try. So this tokamak reactor in Hefei sustained plasma at 120 million degrees Celsius.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, which I would put on some SPF 50 for that, probably.
Okay. Yeah.
It requires a little bit of extra sunscreen. For over 100 seconds.
Oh wow.
Again, it's new, but the idea is that like they're working on new ways to create energy. So like you said, the Chinese, if they create some kind of magic, maybe it's not magic, maybe it's just research and development for new energy sources. But if that's the case, if they can, I'm not suggesting that the Chinese are going to replicate the sun in like the Guangzhou province, but I am saying that they're at least working on very powerful ways to do renewable energy
Which
in
is
a way that doesn't seem to be happening in the United States, where they're just like, hey, why don't we just use natural gas and we'll burn that?
no, but actually, this is another type of conversation. But now, I can't get out of my mind that AI is really showing all the weaknesses of the last 10 years of we need to reduce our energy spend, and we need to go green, and we need to go to net zero emission, and all of this. And what you just said is another example of like no innovation has been made since we said we want to go to 2030, like net zero and all of that. People just said you get to use less energy, you get
Right.
to turn off the light at night. That's the innovation. But nobody was like, hey, we maybe build a new sun, or we need to make this thing better, and all of that, right? And so it really shows that at the end of the day, these 10 or 15 years that we've been talking about climate change and all of this, okay, sure, I'm not debating if it's a fact or not. I'm debating about what do we do about it, right? Like what are the improvements, what are the innovation? What new things do we have? And at the end of the day, not much, right? Like our usage of electricity hasn't dramatically changed, or our usage of light or heat, or all of this hasn't changed, right? Like the only thing that people told us was like, okay, you have to pay more, you have to use it less, right?
Exactly.
That's pretty much it. And now that we have AI, and now that we need to actually 10x our energy needs and not go down. So, which means, first of all, everything you said about using less, that goes away. And now, because we actually cannot have 10x tomorrow, now we need to do innovation in energy efficiency. And so we do that right now, where we could have done it much earlier, right? And so I think this is a really interesting time for all of these, like all of these climate change initiatives, I would say, because AI is actually pushing like climate change like compliance solution, I would say, much more, and driving much more innovation rather than the last 15 years that we've been talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not convinced. Yeah, I don't want to go there. But anyway,
But we see new things right now. That's my
we
point.
do.
But like
But
right
here's the
now,
other thing.
we
We
see
had a
new
whole
things.
conversation, Martin, in one of the segments that we did a couple of days ago on ATP Insights with somebody who's running a company that is involved in the reporting of sustainability and sustainability targets. And one of the things she said was, it's kind of falling out of favor.
Yeah, for
You know what I mean?
sure.
It's not neat. So the governments across the world put in place policies that required you to report certain things. And I think even the governments have lost their mojo
Oh,
around
really?
this. They're just like, you know what?
I mean, what do you want to do, Michael? Like, on one hand, you have people who say climate change is bad and we need to tax you, you need to pay for this reporting and do this thing and do that change.
Mm.
On the other hand, you have AI that says, I want 3 more data centers because we get to compete with the rest of the world. So what do you do? Right?
So you build more data centers. But here's the other thing too, Martin, is that
exactly, at
like
the end of the day, you have
the
to build
news
data
we
centers.
heard back in 2020 said that by 2030 the world was going to be like, if the Earth's temperature rose by like 1.5 degrees Celsius or whatever the number was. And again, I'm not poo-pooing the science, but I'm just saying that like the fear mongering around like that the ocean was going to roll over like into Ohio. Well, we're 3 years away. Like I don't see the tide rising that much in the next 3 years. But I'm no scientist. My point is that if I had to make a choice between that and having another data center, I know it's politically unpopular, but I mean, don't we need the data center?
I think
Because
this
isn't the
is,
data center going to be used with artificial intelligence to figure out how to control climate change? If it is
or
actually a thing?
this is our solution to get 10x the energy needs that we need, right? Because now we
Exactly.
need to be much more efficient. Now we need to actually build something that is going to help us get the energy required for AI much faster, because we need it yesterday, right?
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
now we need innovation. Now we're thinking about building a new sun because we need AI. I mean, this is just absolutely crazy when you think about it. But I think the progression towards innovation made sense to me, right? Like, and it
Yeah.
really shows that if you want people to do something, you need to be positive about that. You need to say, hey, if you do that, you're gonna gain something, rather than if you don't do it, we're gonna punish you, right?
Yeah.
That's what has been happening in the last 15 years. We've been saying to people, you need to turn off your light at night, and you need to pay for this reporting and do this carbon thing and all of that. You get to pay for it. That's a punishment. If you don't do it, you get a fine. So nobody really is happy about it. But as soon as you say, hey, you get to innovate on the power side, so then you can build a new data center, so then you can get an advantage for AI. Now way more people are involved. And so
Yeah. And way more people are interested because,
yes,
because we
interesting.
don't want to, God, I don't want to be one of these maniacs that's like, do you know what I mean? But it's just like, why are you slowing down innovation? Here's the bigger question for me. What does it say, this structure that Nvidia is doing, this concept of like being the big brother or the big uncle, right, to help OpenAI, who doesn't have enough money to finance stuff that they've already committed to buying? How does this change where Nvidia sits, you think, in the AI economy? Do you know what I mean? Because up until like literally like 6 to 8 months ago, they were just like the guys that made the chips. Somehow Jensen Huang has become like, you know, he's like the Led Zeppelin of like AI right now. Dude wears a leather jacket. He's on stage all the time. He's performing at like the Lincoln Center for Performing Art. Like, what is he doing? I don't get it. But the more important thing is Nvidia is changing what its role is in this AI economy,
Yes,
and
yes.
now it's funding stuff. But like, how has it changed its position, and why
So
does it matter?
So I think like Nvidia is one of the company that is not happy with where they're at, and they want more, right? And so they do everything that they can, I would say, to participate into growing AI overall, right? And so they want to sell more chips, they want to do models, they want to build data centers. Like, we try to do everything basically, right? And because they have the
Right.
money, they have the capacity, their valuation is just so high that they can just do it, right? So they basically use the current momentum and crazy valuation that they have to actually go bigger, right? Like, that's really, I think, my
Right.
read on what Nvidia is doing. Like, they are like, you know what, let's just do more and 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 more, and hopefully in 5 years we are the largest company in the world by far. That's really
Right.
the goal.
Look, they want to build, they want to be a full stack AI
Yeah,
provider, right? Not
yeah,
just the chips. They want to own the data centers. They want to fund all this stuff. But I believe that they're running into very dangerous territory, Martin,
for sure.
where they're funding purchases of their own equipment with their own money, right? So it's like if OpenAI went to JP Morgan and said, we want to borrow $250 billion, I would surmise to you that that would never take place because the credit risk is just too high and their revenue growth is not fast enough.
Mhm.
Now, Nvidia is not a bank, but it probably has like a whole bunch of financial analysts inside of its company, so they can do it's just standard financial analysis on its own business and on the business of its partners. But they've made a decision that says they're a good enough credit risk. But again, if OpenAI went to JP Morgan and said, can we borrow $250 billion to fund this thing and buy equipment from Nvidia? Nvidia doesn't care because at the end of the day, they're going to pay for it.
Mhm.
And if OpenAI in this context either goes bankrupt or merges with another company or can't meet its loan responsibilities or loan commitments, it's no skin off of, do you know what I mean, of Nvidia's back because they've already paid for it with JP Morgan's money in this scenario.
Yeah, no, this
but
is go ahead.
but if they're using Nvidia's money or Nvidia's credit rating to borrow that money to buy stuff from Nvidia, and if Nvidia then builds more fabs, plans on building more chips, spends more on R&D, and at the end of the day, OpenAI can't afford to pay for any of this stuff. It's just a slippery slope until Nvidia runs into gigantic financial problems. No,
Oh, that's a big bet. That's a bet, right? Like, and is it going to work or not? We'll see in the future. Hopefully it works, which means that the Nasdaq is gonna go up and all of our money is gonna go up. So that's great.
yeah,
I
yeah.
hope it works.
We don't operate in the world of hope, do we? In the realm of hope, I
I mean,
definitely don't.
that there is a possibility that it works, right? And unfortunately, there is nothing I can do to make it work, right?
Right.
So that's why I live in the world of hope in this case, because all I can do is just spend my money at OpenAI and participate into the
Yeah.
funding, basically.
Mhm.
But besides that, there is not. I mean, OpenAI can also sponsor our shows, and that we're gonna help the expansion. That's something else that we can do.
I would, for $1 billion an episode, I would take them on as a sponsor, but I wouldn't
Exactly.
fund it.
We are going to get them clients, and then the clients are going to fund the growth of everything. So this is how we can participate. But yeah, I mean, there's a possibility that it works. It's risky, yes. Is it a big bet? Yes. If
Mm.
it works, does it make Nvidia really big and really important? Yes, as well, right? So I think this is what they are going to. I think also something that's interesting here is that it looks like Nvidia, like everything we've seen from Nvidia in the last 6 months is all downstream, which means like they have the chip and now they are trying to get to the model. They are trying to get to the cloud hosting. They are trying to get
Well, this is their
um
full. They want to be the factory. Remember that we said this sort of towards the beginning of this year, or in the middle of the first quarter or the second quarter. We said they want to build an AI factory, and this is part of them
yes,
building that AI factory by going
yes, yes,
downstream,
yes, yes,
right?
yes, yes,
Exactly.
yes. And so they go downstream. But what's interesting to me is that why they are not going upstream and replacing TSMC? Why are they not going there?
Oh
Like,
my God,
why?
they can't do that, Martin.
But
Well,
this is the thing. Like, I'm so
talk
impressed.
talk me through this.
Yeah.
You mean by building their own fabrication plants for
Yes, like
chips?
just build your own chips yourself and stop relying on partners. I think like why is it so hard? Like I get still on this idea. Maybe the answer is just like it's impossible, it's too hard,
So
and
there are
and
two
that's
words to
okay.
describe this concept,
Yeah.
Martin.
Okay.
One of them is im, the other one
Okay.
is possible.
Okay,
Im is
and
not a word, by the way.
that fascinates me that there's something like this that's impossible for a $3 trillion company. I don't know. I find that absolutely insane, but it's
Okay,
impossible.
okay. But they're a $3 trillion company. But let's just do this: NVIDIA stock chart. No, not their ADR. What are we doing here? Come on. Just go back and look at like a sorry, I want to get, if you go back and look at all time, their stock was like a laggard literally until like July 1st, 2020. It's actually further than that, until August 2022. And then someone was like, hey, maybe Nvidia is going to be a big deal. You're looking at the chart, right? And then just like boom. So it hasn't been a multi-trillion-dollar company forever. For the life of most of it, it was just barely surviving.
You're right. And it's only been 3 years. Really, like it's really like, yeah, you're right. Like
They couldn't invest in any of the required knowledge to become like a fab. There's no way. I mean, Martin, think about it. We've talked about this, but who else competes with TSMC? You don't even know the names of the companies. There are some companies that do.
Yeah, but they have
But
like
they're not nearly as big,
share.
and they're not normally nearly as technologically advanced, right?
Yeah, no, okay. It's true.
You're so disappointed. You're like, that's it. I'm quitting this podcast and I'm going out and starting a fab company.
No, I'm just like
easy.
fascinated by the fact that yeah, it's right. It's maybe just too hard. And you are right. Like they have not been that big for so long. So you're right. Like maybe they are just doing the small and easy stuff. Let's say, right? Like it's easier to invest into OpenAI and to do all of these things rather than building a fab, right? So maybe that's why. Maybe they have in the back of their mind somewhere that they also want to do a fab at some point, just not the time because they are not big enough.
No. Apple's never going to build its own fabs. No way. They can't. It's way outside their level of expertise. But here's the other thing too, Martin. Just getting back to the finances here. It's not like someone's going to give OpenAI $250 billion tomorrow and they're just going to like slowly parse it out to Nvidia. Right? That's not the way this works. They're going to have a line of credit at some level. I don't know exactly how it's going to work or what the size is going to be. Guaranteed by Nvidia.
Okay.
But let's say that OpenAI's revenue doesn't increase as fast as they wanted to. Well, then Nvidia's going to, and Nvidia's expecting to take the money that somebody else is going to lend OpenAI to buy Nvidia's chips and other services that Nvidia provides, right?
Yeah.
Once the credit gets cut off, what's going to happen to Nvidia's revenue projections, Nvidia's stock? Like all these things are just going to be this vicious circle, no?
But so I think that with all of this combined, Michael, everything that we just said so far, I don't think this is going to happen.
You don't think what's going to happen?
That change. They're not going to build a data center for like $500 billion. Like it's not going to happen. They are not going to do it because.
So what's going to happen then?
Then they are just going to do it another way. But like I think first of all, like I think the first thing that we need to answer is like how OpenAI is going to react to becoming open weight or not, and to the potential ban of the Chinese model or not. I think this is the first question, because in case OpenAI goes open weight, their revenue could like be divided by a lot, and that we don't know exactly what's the impact. So I think until we know that, we have no idea of like actually where OpenAI and Anthropic will be after we change stuff, basically.
Yeah.
So I don't like before this is settled, like before we know if they stay super closed or they go open weight. And if they go open weight, we need to wait a little bit to see exactly what's the impact from AWS, from Microsoft, and all of that. And then after we can discuss investing, basically. And so that's why, like right now, I think it's way too early. Maybe if we just do this announcement to give some sort of of things to discuss, for people on X, but I don't think this is the right timing at all. There is so much uncertainty around how much money gonna make OpenAI in the next 6 months.
But then
It's
the downstream impact of this is going to be huge, right? Because what you're suggesting then is that all of the revenue that Nvidia is expecting to get from OpenAI is not going to happen, or some of it's not going to happen because they can't afford it. But then what does that do to, again, Nvidia's valuation? What does it mean for OpenAI's IPO? What does it mean for Anthropic's IPO? And by the way, what was the low price today? Because we didn't talk about it at all. For SpaceX's stock. Don't look.
We did not change.
Don't look. You're looking. I can see you typing.
Exactly. Are we below 100 already?
No, but it hit 108.66 today.
Oh, 108. We didn't close.
It's now trading 111.39. But my point is that like all of these things are not disconnected.
No. They are completely connected to each other. And this is what is scary in a way, right? Like, because it's really, really connected into at a very deep level. And I think the first question is like, we need to know what OpenAI and Anthropic and potentially Grok and Meta, if you open weight as well. Like, there's so much stuff going on right now. Like, you cannot have any projection of how much money you're gonna make with OpenAI in the next 12 months. Or if you do, I mean, either you're absolutely crazy and you love massive risk, like really, like, you get to be really, really crazy, or
Right.
you have a crystal ball or something, like. But like, who knows how much money OpenAI and Anthropic are not gonna make in the next 12 months? I think this is so uncertain. Like, I mean, the same way it was almost sure at the end of 2025 that these companies were going to grow so much, and then Anthropic does this run where they say, hey, we were making 12 and now 25 and now 45, and then silence, crickets, right? I think it just proves that even in January or February, it would be super bullish. Everything changed in 5 months, right? It's so fast. Yeah. And thankfully, everything happened at the same time. I mean, there's a lot of bad stuff that happened to Anthropic and OpenAI at the same time. I don't think there can be a lot more, to be honest, in the next 6 months.
Bad stuff that's going to happen, or a lot more good stuff.
No, a lot more bad stuff. I think like right now we reached the point where it's pretty bad. I mean, yeah.
You think we've reached peak bad news on?
No. The next phase is Grok, Meta, and Anthropic and OpenAI to open weights. This is the next stage of bad news for them. And then after that, I think we're gonna be in a situation where, okay, let's let the dust settle and let's see what's left of OpenAI and Anthropic first. Like, and then before we're gonna make plans in terms of investment.
Right, but then again, what does that do to their their IPO?
I think in this scenario, they don't IPO. Like, that's part of the bad news that I think they already take into consideration in
right, that they've already considered, that they've already understand.
Exactly. Yeah. I think they already say that we are not going to IPO this year. I think this is already like given, I think.
Yeah. But what does it say? Yeah, this year for sure. Like, again, I'm not giving people investment advice. That's not what the show is about. But if in fact they don't IPO this year, the follow-on impact of that is going to be gigantic, I think, for the entire AI space, particularly for the model space, right?
It's going to be insane. It's going to be absolutely insane. And so that's why, like, before we commit to that type of numbers and before we commit to any investment, we need to see what's going on, basically. And right now we are in the largest change that we've been able to see in the last couple of years.
Right.
And we can't, I mean, I don't know, it would be so crazy insane to commit to any sort of financing based on some people revenue right now. I think it's just impossible.
So let me ask you this question. What would OpenAI have to do? What would their economic performance have to be? What would their revenue growth have to be to justify any of this, so that you would change your mind and say, okay, they're making enough money now, they can essentially borrow $250 billion or more dollars from somebody to pay for a data center in Southern Ohio? Because SoftBank is going to build this thing, man.
So, okay. Okay, so what's the scenario for me to think this is possible for them? So first of all, I want to know.
Because I listened to David Sachs and he's like, I don't
Yeah.
know, Anthropic is or I forget who it was, but it's like it's the fastest growing revenue company in the history of history.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? And yet they're not making enough money to pay for stuff.
Yeah, no. I think first of all, like what I would love to see is how much money is left on the last couple of funding rounds. So yeah, like the last one was 130, the one before was what, something like 60, right?
For
Like
who? For who?
for OpenAI.
$122 billion was their last funding round. The one
Yeah.
before that, I don't remember what the number is,
But
but
like maybe like so that's why what's left out of this, right? Like how much money do they still have out of that? First of all, that's
75 cents is my guess, but something.
so
Who
if
knows,
it's
right?
if it's nothing, then they are in big trouble because the next round is going to be very hard to raise. So I don't know. I don't know what the situation there first, but let's say it's 100 billion. Okay, I'm very very hopeful, Michael. I'm very hopeful. Let's say they still have $100 billion in the bench. That's just sitting there. To me, like I would just say the exact same thing I've been saying. Like just get into compute, all in on compute. So you have 100 billion in the bank. Perfect. Buy a company, buy something. You don't have 5 years to wait and to get something to work.
But there's
But
nothing to buy. You want them to buy what, though?
buy, I don't know, whatever you can find and overpay for it. That's okay.
But
But
no, no,
75.
but buy what? You mean like a data center or?
Yes. Buy data centers on which you can run your ChatGPT tomorrow, like right now. You have no time. So put 75 billion out of 100 that you have, overpay for it. That's okay. At least you're gonna be able to survive. It's gonna give you the floor of what your business. That's the business that you will be able to do. I think that's what I would love to see. And then from there, now that we have assets, now that we have predictive income, because if it's not OpenAI that knows the best how to monetize their compute, then they can sell it to Anthropic, they can sell it to Google or to the other guys. We start to have some sort of benchmark right now. There have been like a couple of deals like Grog and Anthropic paying billions of dollars for each gigawatts. And so now this is much more stable income. Like this is going to
But
go.
why are we? Can I ask you this question though? Why are we presuming that if OpenAI cannot afford, right, to pay for its own compute, so that they should go into the compute provision business as opposed to the compute payment business, that anybody else can? I mean, we did a story a couple of days ago where like Google's investors are really scared that like they can't afford the capex that they're doing just for their Gemini. But you know what I mean? So like, if OpenAI is OpenAI canary in the coal mine, which means like they're just a warning about everybody else in the AI space who's making commitments for things that they can't afford. Right. So again, if they build this massive data center or acquire it or overpay for it, as you're suggesting, who's going to then lease it from them if nobody else can afford to? Do you know what I mean?
So I think AI usage going to increase one way or the other. Like I think we are not going to go down in terms of revenue.
It isn't. I don't disagree with you on this at all. But in the next 3 years, do we think that Apple's going to sort of master this idea of on-device AI? And then that's going to eliminate the necessity for like all these massive data sets. I think that people are building for something that they anticipate is going to happen, and that other things are going to change along the way. And people are going to be like, what do we do with this white elephant data center that we thought was going to be necessary, but now I can run it on my iPhone?
Yes, but I think we're gonna be fine. If I had to take a bet, like if I had to take a scenario, I think the data center is the safest one, because if it's not OpenAI, we can host Anthropic. If it's not Anthropic, we can host Minimatch. If it's not Minimatch, we can host Grok. Like we have so many options, and even if AI on device happens and become good, either innovation required there on the chip side and everything will also be able to be implemented at higher scale and at more efficiency in the data centers themselves. So yes, maybe out of the $100 billion that you have in the OpenAI bench, you don't put 75, maybe you put 50s, and then you keep some money to be able to buy new chips in 2 years when Apple becomes like way better on AI on device and you get to be competitive there. So yes, maybe you need to price buying new chips when the new ones will be available. But I think a cloud offering would make sense. I think we will always need that. And so if I had to take a bet, I think the safest, and I like safe bet, I would do that. I would go into compute.
I don't think there's any chance they're going to do that.
So,
I just think they're so late to the game.
They are
And I think
leaders.
it's 6 of one, half dozen of another in the sense of like, did they pay somebody to build it for them, or not pay to build it, but do they wait for someone else to build it? Because the time frame is going to take exactly the same amount of time, unless you're right that they actually buy something that already exists. But if they could, wouldn't they have already done it? First of all,
I
and
agree.
second of all, if they have to wait for somebody else to fund a new data center, whether it's in Southern Ohio or Southern Kansas, it doesn't matter to me. Like it just takes so much time to build
Oh, for sure.
these data centers and then connect them to the grid. It's like a 3 to 4 year period of time. And I
Yes.
think at some point OpenAI is going to run out of stuff. We're down 110.96 right now again for SpaceX.
Yes,
Anyway,
it is highly possible. Michael, I would leave you here. Ali just joined, so I will welcome him to the show, and
perfect.
and you can talk about this for a couple of minutes, if that's okay.
I will do that.
Okay, well, let's do
Thank you,
this
Martin.
with Ali. So
Okay.
thank you very much, everyone, and see you on Thursday. Bye bye.
Thank you, Martin. Okay, I wanted to talk about this a little bit more. So Martin gave his opinion on this. I'm going to give my opinion again. And since there's no counterweight, I can say whatever I want. I don't think that OpenAI is going to get out of the artificial intelligence business and get into the compute business. I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's in their DNA. And I don't think it's something that Sam Altman wants to do. And frankly, I don't think it's something that their investors are going to support. Here's the problem. When you raise $1 trillion or whatever they've done, if you raise hundreds of billions of dollars, you've kind of made a promise when you raise that money about what you're going to do with that money. And OpenAI has said they're going to build better models, find a better business model, and then try to expand using their FDE program, right, to go out and get more clients, to take their existing agentic coding business and any other thing that they can kind of think up in the interim to try to figure out how they can then increase their revenue. But I do think that their biggest problem is, and this gets back to the original founding of the company, is that when they started doing their research on what an LLM could do, they didn't know what the impact was going to be. So they didn't have like a 7 or a 6 or a 7 year plan on trying to understand, like, if we build this thing, what are we going to use it for? We've already talked about the fact that they've stumbled upon agentic coding. But in the same way that Opus 4.6 was kind of the first model that made this possible, 4.8 got better, Fable 5, and now Opus 5 is better. We kind of just don't know like where this is going to go from a revenue generation perspective. And I don't think OpenAI does. And I don't think they're going to make the same safe bet or any bet that Martin said they were going to make, just based on what I know and what we've seen about Sam Altman doing. Okay, Martin, should we bring Ali in? Ali, how are you this morning? I am doing super duper. Where are you based, by the way? Oh, sweet. We're in July. At least it's not freezing cold there. In my mind, like my daughter went to McGill, so and she was there like during the wintertime. So in my mind, like Canada is just cold, but it's not always cold. So forgive me for that.
Well, Vancouver is a bit different, so
Yeah,
it's not like the rest of Canada.
fair enough.
But yeah, it's not very hot here either in summer now. So
That's like, it feels to me like it should be wet, and we'll get to why we have you on. But it feels to me like it's more like Boston. I grew up in Boston when I was a kid.
yeah,
And it was like at nighttime, it could be, I want to get this right, in Fahrenheit, like 50 degrees at night, but during the day it could get to 75, 80. So in my head, maybe like
right.
that's what Vancouver's like. I don't know the answer to that question.
Well, sort of. Yeah, it
Sort
doesn't
of,
get
you're like,
as cold. So
not that far off. Okay, look, we wanted to have you on because we wanted to talk about how, and again, thanks for joining us. We wanted to talk about how accessible exchange infrastructure for Web3 stuff will help businesses launch trusted digital asset services without having to build the underlying technology. Maybe you can tell us a little bit first about the important work that HollaEx does, and then we can dive right into this. Yeah.
sure, yeah. So we essentially make the infrastructure building a crypto exchange, a crypto platform, all those technology, the components that are required, very, very easy for businesses. And it's sort of something that essentially any business needs. Like when you want to get into the crypto space, there's a lot of different blocks, a lot of different components that you need to build. And since it's a financial software. It requires years of testing, years of development, in order to have something really, really solid and very reliable. So that's what essentially we provide. You don't have to reinvent the wheel as a business. You can just essentially build based on the infrastructure and the system that we provide.
How long did it take you to build the infrastructure that now you are presuming you're going to white label to other businesses who want to have their own digital asset marketplace?
This took years. Like, I've been in the crypto space since 2013, and from 2014 I've been doing development. So this is years and years of experience.
Wow.
Starting from Bitcoin, and then other cryptocurrencies, other blockchains, and here we are. So I've seen it, like I've seen up and downs. I've seen a lot of problems, issues, things can go wrong, and there's a lot of it. So you need to get a lot of experience in order to be able to build the software and provide it to someone else.
How do you stay motivated through the sort of ups and, because Bitcoin is a proxy for the rest of the market, right? But like there have been times where Bitcoin has just gotten killed. It was at 120 like a few months ago. It's at 65 now. Like, how do you stay motivated and continue being a believer in the sense that like we need more of these exchanges, we need more of these marketplaces, more people are going to get involved in the digital asset space, and I don't care what the noise is around me, but I'm just going to keep building? Because you're right, it takes time to build this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone through a lot of these up and downs. Like when I got into Bitcoin, it was like 100, $125.
Yep.
So you can imagine like going all the way to like $1,000, and then it crashed again. And I've seen a lot of that. But the thing that fundamentally has always been there, and it's the same today, is this financial alternative that it provides. You have a technology that gives you an alternative way to move money, to essentially redefine how monetary system works.
Right.
I've been previously, I was in the payment industry, and I've seen how restricted that is, how difficult it is to gain any access. And when I got into Bitcoin, the fact that you can code on top of it, you can build software, you can build like different stacks on top of that. Just it's phenomenal. It's like you have access to this amazing open system, open money, and that sort of allows you to be able to build without like all those considerations of the technologies that's been there, built like years and years ago, and they're not really fundamentally very very, very flexible. So it gives this alternative way to do stuff. And that's been the same. And it's not, because it's not controlled by anyone, it allows you to be able to like build and continuously develop on top of that, which is something that I think it's very different in other industries. It allows you that continuous development and continuous improvement in this without getting this permission from all these different governments and stuff. So that's the interesting thing about it. Yeah.
Got it. What kind of company should build their own digital asset marketplace? And even if they should, why should they build their own?
So the way we look at things is having a market essentially removes a lot of frictions. Having a marketplace makes it easy. You have this idea. I mean, there are so many other platforms that do marketplaces. Like, I mean, you have Facebook Marketplace, for example, which is like simple stuff. But then when you have any asset, any commodity, the way to price it when it's essentially fungible, meaning like two of the same assets are the same thing. Right. So that essentially means in order to find a price, you can have a marketplace. It doesn't have to be a very liquid, marketplace. As long as you have an asset, you place it in a market, and then other people can buy it. That creates a market. It creates a lot of opportunities, and it essentially creates real value, because if someone else is willing to pay, if is willing to buy something from you at a specific price,
right,
that is very, very, that's a very, very important statement. So now you have a market and you have real value, real price of items, and then people can essentially trade. So it makes it more accessible for everybody to be able to access that. Well, while that also can have downsides, because there's been a lot of scams, there's been a lot of people trying to take advantage of it. But fundamentally, like, we actually published a whole article about like how exchanges started in Belgium, like about 1,000 years ago, how they started like, building a sort of a manual exchange in a square in Belgium. So like from there to today, now we have like these digital assets. It should be very easy for people to be able to do that without paying like, crazy amount of like money for getting listed and doing like all that stuff. I'm not talking about like private companies or anything. I'm not, obviously there's like a lot of law, there's like compliance and stuff related to that. Fundamentally, having that access to marketplace and creating marketplace is very, very valuable. So even if you're a company
what type of company should build their own marketplaces now, right? So I understand, and I really appreciate the research that's done here and the detail around like, yeah, these markets maybe started in Belgium. They were stock. Let's just talk about stock marketplaces, because these are the things that most people understand when we want to go into options and stuff like that, and commodities, because it'll just blow people's brains up. But over time, we've seen like there used to be stock exchanges in Boston, in Philadelphia, even stock exchanges in Chicago, but now there's really just like the New York Stock Exchange, in the United States, yeah, the NASDAQ. There used to be a Pacific Stock Exchange, that's gone. Why do we need more exchanges for companies, and which type of company should build this? Like, what type of company that sells what type of digital asset should build their own marketplace, as opposed to just putting it on, some established exchange already?
So the reason they consolidated to a few exchanges, like you mentioned, is essentially liquidity and the cost of running these platforms. It's very costly, both on the technology side, and that's where we come in. I mean, we make it easy for people to like build that technology, but also on the compliance. And there are a lot of operations, a lot of like different things that needs to be pulled together for a functioning exchange. And liquidity is also very, very important, because people tend to go to a place that has more volume, is more liquid, so they got consolidated towards like a few exchanges. But it's not also just about a stock exchange, it's essentially about anything. I have, let's say,
use that as an example. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so let's say you are a company, you provide some types of services. Can these services be offered as a token, or can these tokens be fungible? And can these redeem something? We have loyalty coins, loyalty tokens. There's already a lot of like air mileages. There's already a lot of these concepts already out there, but they're very, very restrictive. I mean, some of it is due to compliance, but some of it is just like, how they're designed, and they're not like very open. But as soon as like you make this open, now you have a marketplace for this. Like there's real value behind it. And sometimes like, businesses can essentially like earn money towards like, distributing these, or, so that's the concept. While again, like there's a lot of compliance around certain things, like there are certain things that you should do, you shouldn't do. And, but fundamentally as a business, there are a lot of like different ways to offer your services. And this is a different way of looking at it. If you want to also get into stocks, the stock market, like as a person who owns a stock, I essentially, I'm just like locked to a platform. Let's say like, if you use a broker, you have an interactive broker account, and then you have, some stocks in your account. You can't move them. You can't really, then, maybe you can get a piece of paper that says like you own this stock, but like there's not much really that you can do. But when you connect it also to blockchain, and then you make it open, you create a marketplace around it. Now there's a whole different story around it. I can easily move that. I can see it. I can have it in my wallet. And especially for new generations, this is the interesting part. Older generation tend to really like that paperwork. They like to have that stock certificate that I own specific. I mean, yeah, some people really do. So that's it's a different generation. But when you talk to people today, I'd rather personally to own a token on my digital wallet and be able to like send that to different exchanges around the world and be able to like, liquidate that, buy that, sell that, than having a paper. And I don't know like where exactly do I have to put that even? Like, what do I have to do with that paper? Or if I'm like locked to one specific like platform, and then, there's not much that I can do about it. And then it also kills competition, because there's just one exchange it's the only one that provides it. Like that's the one that sets all the fees, sets the rules.
Right.
There's not much that you can actually really do with that. But this kind of like opens up, like especially with tokens on the blockchain, it opens up how we can actually like interact with these tokens. There's so much that we can do. We can move them, we can stake them, and then we can just do it directly through the blockchain. Like we don't have to go through multiple layers of brokers and all these fees that we have to spend. We have to give them. So that essentially removes a lot of frictions, removes middlemen, and also creates creates more marketplaces that makes things more competitive and more efficient.
What do we do? So are we suggesting that places like Binance or Coinbase or Kraken or whatever, that they're not sufficient enough today, and that we want to have a more fragmented system for token trading or even for RWA, for real world asset trading? Do you know what I mean? I'm just trying to figure out like why, if I had a token that I wanted to list somewhere, I understand the fact that like, if there are only 5 of them, that the fees to list are going to be expensive and that they can make up their own rules. But if I have my own services that I want to offer through a digital token, I can contract obviously with HollaEx, and then I can list them there. But then how do I handle things like, and I don't have to pay fees because it's my marketplace that I'm creating for the services that I sell. But then how do I get the discovery around there, right? Because if I ask any crypto guy or gal, where do you trade? They'll probably say Binance, Coinbase, Kraken, or whatever, but they've never heard of like Michael Waits' exchange. Even if I do have services that I can sell on a token, how do I solve the discovery problem as well, which I find is one of the biggest business problems out there?
So that is true, yes. Part of the reason that people listed on a bigger exchange is because they want to be discoverable. They want to like get liquidity. They want to, be able to.
And there's serendipity as well. Like if I'm there looking at Bitcoin and I see something else, I'm like, well, I wonder what that thing is. I could possibly trade that or buy that or something else. Yeah.
So the fundamental value, like you have to be established business already. Like you have already a product, you already have your users, and there's some types of service that you already provide. The real value comes from that essentially. The token is just a different way for you to be able to like market your services, get exposure. And the really interesting thing is, part of the reason we've been having these loyalty tokens, and things like that is just to get people, because as soon as like I own something, whether it's equals to a service or equals to a share of the company or it's equals to like whatever, I have some attachment to that company or to that service or to whoever or to you, like, people can tokenize themselves even. Like, you can essentially speculate on my future, like how I'm going to do. And then, that's connected to my reputation, like that token. It's something that it's been like tokens like that, which is, I think, also an interesting idea. So sky is the limit. There are a lot of different ideas, a lot of different ways. It's like, it's not just Bitcoin and, cryptocurrencies that can be traded. These tokens can represent anything. It can be a gamified token that's on a platform, and then people value that on that platform. In order for you to get that, you have to do XYZ, but now you can buy that. We've had these marketplaces among even gamers. For example, Steam has like marketplace for trading these, but essentially it's about having more of this, having a more open version of that, which is easier to use. And have a universal like setup and language that essentially everybody is able to like integrate and plug it in and can use. So it's very reusable.
So do you think that if multiple companies like go out and build their own exchanges for their own services, that over time we will see a consolidation of people that have white labeled the HollaEx platform? Is there any way for you yourself as a firm to be like, okay, there's one company that's using our platform, another company that's using another company, and then for you guys to just go like, hey man, why don't we just consolidate all this? We're already running all the back end stuff. We understand how this works. We understand the maintenance, all this other stuff. And then HollaEx itself just turns into another marketplace.
It's all about efficiency at the end of the day. And so consolidation can happen, in certain cases, obviously, but it's all about efficiency. It's about compliance, a lot of different elements. That's obviously one parameter to consider, and consolidation sometimes do help. But that's not the whole thing. The reason that people create their own exchanges, for example, like, I'm not even talking about like tokens, just let's say Bitcoin. If you are, in Africa, in let's say Ghana, there's a lot of countries that do not have access to basically like Binance, or there's no way for them to like send money to these already established exchanges. So there are different jurisdictions, there are different places. You obviously need like more localized setup. You need to like support it in your own language. Even like with Bitcoin, there's already a lot of like these fragmentation in different places. Whether these exchanges work together or not, of course, like they can be also consolidation if it makes sense. But there are a lot of frictions and a lot of like this fragmentation is because people are in different parts of the world. They have different focuses. They want different things. They want different features. And Binance is just representing one. It's a platform, or Coinbase is a platform that does certain things that a lot of people want, but they can't obviously handle a lot of different use cases and things. It could go against even their business model. So maybe it's an idea somewhere else that people want to do something very, very differently.
Got it. Okay, look, fascinating stuff. I can't believe how fast we've gone through this. Emily, thank you so much for joining our show tonight. I really appreciate it. I'm going to keep watching this because I want to see actually what happens on these sort of individual exchanges that get built in these individual marketplaces. Thank you again for spending so much time with us.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye for now. Okay, Martin, let's bring Preetam in. How are you doing this morning? And where are you based? Miami. Nice. I haven't been in Miami since 2023, I want to say, but it's not that long ago. What a wonderful, wonderful place to live. It's nice to have you here. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining us on the show. Preetam, we wanted to have you on to talk about how AI-driven cybersecurity governance will help regulated businesses innovate without creating unacceptable operational and other types of. Maybe before we jump in, you can give us a little bit more information about PerfectSync and the important work that you guys are doing.
Sure. PerfectSync started the company last year basically to provide guidance to companies on cybersecurity issues, looking at it more holistically than as a point solution, which very often happens, causing a sprawl of security tools and mismanagement and a lot of gaps, right?
Yep.
So when you look at it more holistically, then you tend to get a better effect on security. So you're able to drive new business, you're able to reduce costs, and able to reduce risk. That's the whole goal.
Got it. How are the enterprise security teams with whom you're dealing preparing or existing in what I would call like an AI-driven threat landscape?
AI has really caught on in enterprise in big ways. In
Right.
the business, in security, almost every area is now sort of being driven a lot by AI. What has changed a lot is that from being a sort of advisor role, it has moved into an active operational role with agentic AI. Right. So there's a big difference in that in terms of what one was seeing probably in the past few years to what is actually happening now.
So how has AI changed the threat that CISOs and their teams, right, the chief information security officers are actually looking at? Like, how has AI changed the nature of that threat? Has it made it harder, easier? Like, how do you look at that?
like any new technology, when it captures the market, I think what happens is that a lot of people just jump in without thinking about it.
That's true.
I think a lot of the risk has really happened because of that.
Hmm.
I mean, you can imagine where companies were rewarding people for using the maximum number of tokens. It's like saying, go out and do as much damage as you can. And
That's not good.
I think that was pretty ridiculous. One of the biggest challenges is that it has opened a lot of new attack surfaces. Think
I was
of
going to say, yeah, go ahead.
back in the day when you had shadow IT going out. You had SaaS platforms that people were subscribing to that companies didn't know about.
Hmm.
The same thing is happening with AI now, but on a much more exponential scale. That is one thing. The second thing is that the identity of what I would say is non-human identities has exploded. There are probably 50, 60x the number of non-human identities compared to human identities in an enterprise.
Hmm.
And there has been no track of that because of all the early adventures into AI. I think that's where most enterprises are really trying to catch up. What I do see is that teams, especially the security teams now, are focusing on bringing their frameworks into play. Existing frameworks just need to be adapted for AI. And so long as they get back to the basics and stick to those frameworks for whatever governance is needed, they should get into a good place soon.
But how do we handle this? Because I want to talk about both of these things. The increase in identities for NHIs, right, is obviously super important, non-human identity, but also this idea of surface expansion. It was something I wrote down as like just before you said it, because I want to ask you about it. And again, just to make it easy for people to understand, like in the old days, you would literally have like a front door, and if you couldn't get in the front door, then you're stuck outside on the perimeter. But now you've got like literally thousands of doors. I think you said there were 60 times as many NH, because I think these things are related. There's 60 times as many NHIs as there are regular employees inside of institutions that are actually employing agentic AI. And if this was sort of an excursion into unknown territory at the beginning where like they weren't really tracking it, it was just like some guy at some desk built his own agent and another gal at another desk built her own agent. And now they're just out there rampaging around, whether for good or for bad. But now they've increased these surfaces. In the old days, again, if someone couldn't get through the periphery, you had a problem. But now the periphery is everywhere and they're opening and closing doors all the time. How do they deal with that? Because it's not just surface expansion. It's like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week of surface expansion as well. Yeah.
So again, we have to get back to basics, right?
Go ahead.
So what rights do these identities have? When you create an agent, does the agent have a right to do anything at all? And that's where you have to get to, where everything that agent can do in terms of identity, in terms of its rights, has to be absolutely deterministic. You can't have AI assuming and being able to do things on its own. So the governance around what an agent can do must be deterministic.
Right. But then how do we explain what happened recently with OpenAI and Hugging Face? I mean, are we suggesting then that agent was not behaving in a way that was deterministic, or are we also suggesting that maybe OpenAI was specifically just going like, I don't know, let's see what happens if we give this guy a little bit more permission than maybe we should, and see if it can hack into not just Hugging Face, that was just the first example of it, but other of our partners where we know we have connectivity, where we have API access, and we have MCP connectivity to them. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. And I do think because it was in a sandbox, they probably didn't really have the production level of controls that should be there.
Right. That's part of the problem.
Yeah. So one has to be very careful about what you allow AI to do. It's just as much as what you would allow a human to do.
Yeah.
Right. So for example, you wouldn't allow a person to go in and see financial information. I mean, any employee go in and see financial information of the company. Why would you allow any agent to do that? right? So it's the same principles, but you just need to be able to expand that and make sure that everybody understands. There are companies that are spending a lot of money in educating their staff. And I think that's critical. They're educating their business staff, they're educating their HR staff on how to use AI, what to do with AI, what are the limits they can go to with the tools that they've been provided. So those, I think, are critical. Like we always say, the human is the weakest factor in the link. That's the same thing here, right? So unless you educate the human, unless you get them to understand what needs to be done and give them the right tools to do it, you'll never get there. The second thing is things like threat modeling. You need to do that before you actually roll out a product. Right? You need to figure out what is that agent able to do, what is the sort of limits of data that it can do. So building that harness, building the deterministic controls, making sure that you have segmentation of what it can access, or controlling a blast radius. So that term is very popular these days.
Right.
These all play a lot into what one has to do to secure the enterprise.
So two things. One is, do you think that most companies actually understand how important governance is? That's first of all. And second of all, when you roll out these tools, the ability for, I wouldn't say anybody, but mostly anybody inside of a big enterprise to start using agentic AI, where the harnesses are built, or or not, you just run the risk that people are going to use their agents to do things that were unintended at the beginning. If the proper governance wasn't in place, like how do you control that in a place where you could literally have thousands of employees spinning up multiple agents on their own? You said there was a 60-to-1 ratio. Like that would mean that in a company of, let's say 1,000 people, where 500 of them had access to it, you now have 30,000 agents running around.
Enterprises have a lot of tools, right?
Yep.
You have endpoint user control, say endpoint detection and response, things of that sort. You have endpoint controls that can put policies on endpoints.
Yep.
You can put policies on what they can access. So from a machine, what areas of your network is it allowed to go to? What areas of the internet is it allowed to go to?
Right.
Those policies come into play. So you still have to look at everything. Like I mentioned, identity is sort of critical. Continuous entitlement analysis, looking at token revocations, any kind of session controls, things of that sort. You're looking at the endpoint itself. Can you kill a process? If you think a process is going rogue, how quickly can you detect and kill it?
Yep.
Right? How do you quarantine things which you think are malicious? Even if the agent has been built by the person itself, the minute your EDR agent detects that it's malicious, can lock it down, right? These kind of things come in. You're looking at your networks and egress controls. Are you actually looking at what is happening on your network, firstly? Are you analyzing the traffic flow? Enterprises need to do this. Are you doing segmentation? Are you doing active blocking? Do you have the ability to do these things? I think a lot of that counts towards what you're doing. Your secrets, right? This is key. API keys in AI, are you storing them in an environment file that can be hacked and potentially reused by someone else? Are you storing them in something like a secrets manager? Are you using key management systems? What are you doing at the enterprise level? And well, it's not just large enterprise. Anybody using AI should keep these things in mind and figure out what has to be done as far as that is concerned.
But so just get back to one more thing. Like, do you think that most companies actually understand like how important this governance is, and that they can roll out? Because you can have a seminar internally about what governance means, but then you have to put those in place technologically, as you said. Like some guy sitting at desk seat number 1 can and may have different permissions that he can actually give to an agent than somebody sitting at desk number 2. And all that stuff has to be built into sort of some sort of technological ecosystem that you're building internally. and into your tech stack. Are companies ready for this yet?
Companies have the tools. At least large enterprises, all of them have the tools.
Hmm.
The question is, organizationally, like you said, are
That's
they
what I mean.
geared or not? There is a significant increase. If you look at LinkedIn, almost every day there are a few new jobs on as AI governance.
Yep.
What I've seen is that the AI governance person is typically not at an executive level. They are
It's typically
normally
not at what level? Say it again.
functional, not at an executive level.
Yeah, fair enough. Right.
Right? They
Yeah.
are mostly like GRC functionaries
Right.
that they're slapping in for AI governance. Do they have the authority to ride over departments? The biggest problem in companies is siloed organizations. It's got nothing to do with security or anything of that sort. It's been the problem always before AI, and it's still continuing even with AI. How do you break through these silos of organizations to ensure that everything fits into your framework and then works in an automated fashion, right? One is having the governance framework. That's the easy part, relatively. Actually executing on it is the challenge. And that's where you today have to leverage AI to automate everything. Just as you'll have a attacker using AI to automate attacks, you need to be able to automate your defense. You need to be able to automate building your policies in terms of controls, that is technical controls. When I say policies, it's not a written policy like a security policy. I'm talking about actual execution of controls. So for example, we talk about somebody sitting here and somebody sitting there building AI agent.
Yep.
The question comes is that, do you have an endpoint detection response policy for that person's role of what they can do?
Right. That's the big question, right? And this is what I was talking about before, right? So you can create all these governance policies, but unless they're put in place in a way that's technologically robust, it's not going to matter. Yeah.
Yes. And I think that's one area has always been a gap. People buy a tool and they put it in and they expect the tool to do everything. They don't realize that they really have to analyze each person's role, define what that role can do, and build that into the policy on the EDR.
Yeah, exactly. From a cybersecurity standpoint, where does AI create the greatest asymmetry for attackers versus defenders?
The asymmetry with attackers has always been that they just have to break one thing.
Oh, interesting. Go ahead.
They just have to find one weakness. A defender, on the other hand, has to look at everything.
Yeah.
And that's where the asymmetry always exists. Now, using AI, you can technically reduce that a lot. You can speed up things, you can reduce the vulnerabilities that are exposed. There's a lot that can be done, but there's a lot of discipline that has to go in. For example, you ask a developer to write a unit test when they're developing a feature to make sure that it works.
Right.
Are you instructing your AI coding agent to do the same thing, that for every feature that it's developing, do a unit test to test that it's actually working?
Right.
Right? That kind of control has to come in the education of the developers who are using AI, has to come into harnesses that you're building for your platforms. I think harnesses are really, really critical.
So in this case, right, and we talked about surface expansion at the beginning, and if you're using AI as a way to sort of scale, and agentic AI as a way to scale your ability to defend, how do you, like, what's the right governance level policy, or even just like the agentic AI policy around how can I then use the AI to minimize the noise that I'm getting for things that may not be that important to look at versus the signals of things that are going to be super important for me to pay attention to? When
you're looking at reducing noise, the first thing is are you looking for stuff that is in your environment, right?
Yep.
You can get a lot of threat intelligence about things, but if it's not impacting anything in your environment, then it's noise. You need to be able to filter that out first. The second thing is that when you look at a lot of vulnerabilities, and if you look at what has changed today from CVEs, they've gone to KEVs, right?
What does that
So
mean?
CVEs are the common vulnerability enumeration. So any vulnerability that's detected was put into that database. So you had hundreds of thousands of vulnerabilities, and now with AI, that number went up exponentially.
For sure.
But known exploitable vulnerabilities are where vulnerabilities have actually been exploited, right? Building that up and then using AI to check if your vulnerabilities are actually exploitable, using that principle and detecting what's actually exploitable. I think that has a lot of value than just saying, oh, there's a vulnerability in this.
Yeah. Look, I want to let you go after this, but I really think about this a lot. And the one question that is always enters into my mind is that, is there really a way that defenders can win this game? Or to the attackers, as you said, because they only have to find one vulnerability, and once they're in, if they do their jobs in the right way, they can wreak havoc in a way. And remember, the defenders are not trying to ruin anything; they're just trying to play defense, even if they do it in an offensive way. But is this a game that's winnable for the defense, or is the offense always is the attacking side of this always gonna be like one step ahead?
The way I look at this is goes back to my army training. I look at this as a perfect defensive battle. There is no perfect defense.
Right.
You will be breached. But what people don't realize is that when you're breached, a defender launches what is called a counterattack to dislodge the attacker
Okay.
and rebuild the defense. In our technology world, that would come to your disaster recovery and business continuity processes.
Yeah, your drip stuff, yeah.
Okay, so the question comes is how quickly can you recover from an incident is critical. Will there be incidents? There will always be incidents.
Right.
Anybody who says that there will be no incidents is
lying or deluded or both.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's critical that every organization looks at what their capability is to recover from an incident.
Got it. Okay. How has sorry, go ahead. Did I interrupt you?
No. Go ahead.
So how are and I'll let you go after this, right? But how are the leaders that are in charge of this stuff balancing innovation with security governance in the sense that they want to use agentic AI as much as they possibly can, but they do want to make sure that they're balancing rolling out this stuff at scale with this idea that they have the right security in place?
How are
they balancing innovation, right? Because when you innovate, you want to move as fast as you possibly can, but you also want to be protecting stuff. We already talked about, like, it's harder to defend than it is to attack. So how do you balance this idea of we want to be as innovative as possible, but we don't want to leave our security like ungoverned and open?
Having good security basically makes you more innovative, right? The question comes is that, say, for example, for innovation, are you running an innovation in a sandbox? Or are you running it in your production platforms?
Yeah, fair enough. Go ahead.
As simple as that, right? What rights are you allowing in that innovation space? For example, you can allow people to try out new technology, but isolate it from the rest of the things so that it doesn't impact your production. Once you've found what you want to build, then you productionize it and roll it out. Simple things like that. Making sure that you're secure in whatever you do actually allows a company to grow.
Yeah, fair enough, right? Because if you're not constantly defending things, or if
yeah, a lot of companies are asking for, a lot of customers are asking companies for security certifications. Now, if you get a security certification, like say you get a state ramp or FedRAMP certification.
Right.
It opens out a completely new market for you.
Yeah, fair enough, right? Because people now feel
Right.
safer dealing with you, for sure, right?
Right. So the question comes is that security done right is a business enabler. Like I said, the first goal of security is to help a business make money.
Yeah.
So how do you help it grow? How do you help it if they want to try a new thing? And look at this as tied to your threat modeling. Your threat modeling really happens at the ideation stage. So when somebody wants to innovate, wants to do something, that's when you start your threat modeling and figure out what kind of threats you can have, factor them in so that when you're innovating, you're building it right.
Yeah. Do you get the sense now that the defensive teams are now working even more closely together, regardless of what the vertical is, with the product teams, so that they can do exactly what you're suggesting? That part of the product development, part of the innovation development is making sure that when you roll out something that's new, that it's already been secured and fits into your governance framework as well.
Yes, I mean, you have to do that. It varies from organization to organization, right?
Right.
So, very frankly speaking,
Mm.
I believe security organizations need to be embedded in the business,
Yeah, fair enough. I don't disagree with you. Go ahead.
not centralized at a corporate level.
Mm-mm.
They need to be embedded in the business to understand what each business's requirements are, which may vary in an organization which is large, may have different lines of business having different requirements.
Right.
And so you need, especially the security architects, the application security teams, really should be part of the product teams.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Okay,
Yeah.
Preetam, I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for spending so much time with us this morning. We really appreciate it. Very, very interesting stuff. I love talking about security, cybersecurity, particularly in the context of AI and agentic AI. So thank you again for spending so much time with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
It's my complete pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody, that is it for AGTP Insights today. Thank you to everybody that joined us. Give us a thumbs up on today's video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on all of our socials, on X, on Instagram, and on LinkedIn. The more comments, the better. Let us know what you like that we do. Let us know what that you want us to do. We will be back again on Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. My name is Michael Wades. Thank you again to Martin Runford. I'm going to say bye for now.